may not fear the power of any adversary, through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for making out time to be with us today. Once again, you have created time despite your very busy schedules to attend today's annual lecture. We deeply thank you. Today's topic is schooling without learning. We believe that this year's topic is particularly interesting as it resonates with each and every one of us, despite of our profession. The topic addresses the rot in the entire educational system and its failing standards. We will discuss the challenges facing our educational system and the problem of graduates who are unemployable and poorly prepared for contributing to and thriving in our society. The lecture is meant to highlight the need to save our educational sector from its present challenges. The speakers will engage in an in-depth review of our current educational system and address its shortcomings. Some of the questions that will be addressed, which I'm sure echoes some of those that would ring in our minds, include what is the quality of the basic and foundational education received by students across the nation? What should be the content and standards of the school curriculum? Why is our standard of education falling? Is Nigerian education equipping students to match a constantly evolving world? Why are Nigerian universities poorly ranked in Africa and the world? In addition to identifying the problems in our educational system, the panel will address ways of moving education in Nigeria forward. We claim no expertise on these issues, but as part of our contribution towards a better Nigeria, we at Aelex have put together a team of experienced speakers who will address all aspects of this issue. They're able to give us a practical perspective based on their knowledge and experience. Ladies and gentlemen, without taking too much of your time, we would like to invite our special guests to the high table. But first, please welcome the managing partner of Aelex, Mr. Theophilus Emua.
Good afternoon, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I will stand on existing protocol. It's my humble duty to welcome you all to this lecture. It's our 12th, although we are 13 years old. Every year, we select a topic that is of interest to society at large. We invite speakers who we feel will be able to speak to those topics, to those issues. And the idea really is to encourage debate. We don't claim that we will have solutions, not at the end of today, maybe not even tomorrow, but at least let us start the debate or encourage the debate that has already started. Last year we discussed, the health of the states of Nigeria. I don't know that much has improved since then, but at least people are beginning to understand what needs to be done to make things better. Today we're looking at something that affects all of us, regardless of your profession, regardless of what you do for a living, because no matter what you do, at some point in time, you will need to see a doctor. You may not need to see a lawyer, many of you, but it's unlikely that you will live through life without ever having to see a doctor. And woe betide you if you come upon the wrong doctor. You may get misdiagnosed, misprescribed, and from there on, anything could happen. Now, why is this the case? I don't know, but I'm hoping that Professor Ibidapo might give us some idea of how we got here, and perhaps also of how we can get out of it. On that note, I will say please take time to listen to our speakers, and at the end of the day, perhaps we would have found some solutions to the problems of Nigeria. Welcome.
Please join us as we invite the chair lady of this occasion, Chief Mrs. Folake Sholanke, SAN. Chief Folake Sholanke, SAN, CON, BA, Diploma Education, FN, IALS, LLD, DLIT, is a lawyer with over 52 years of legal practice. She was the first female senior advocate of Nigeria and has received numerous awards. She was conferred with the Order of the Merit of the Commander of the Order of the Niger by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. She's a fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies. Chief Sholanke was born in Abeokuta, Ogun State on 29th March 1932. From 1937 to 1939, she attended Ago Oko Primary School and then attended Emo Girls School in Abeokuta from 1940 to 1944. She went on to study at the Methodist Girls High School in Lagos from 1945 to 1949, where she obtained the first grade 1 in the Senior Cambridge School Certificate Examination. After graduating from the Methodist Girls High School, Chief Sholanke worked briefly as a clerk at a ministry in Lagos. In January 1951, she left the ministry to study at the King's College, England, and at the University of Durham, now the University of Newcastle upon Tyne, in England, United Kingdom, from 1951 to 1955, where she obtained her bachelor's degree and diploma in education, respectively. Upon graduation, she taught Latin and mathematics as a resident teacher at the Piper's Corner School in Buckinghamshire, England, and St. Monica School in Essex, England. She also taught at the Yejide Girls Grammar School in Ibadan, Oyo State, between 1958 and 1960. She worked as a students officer at number 7 at the Nigerian High Commission in London from 1960 to 1962. During this period, she studied law at the Gray's Inn, where she passed the bar examination and was called to the English bar in absentia in May 1963. She immediately enrolled as a lawyer with the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Upon her enrollment, she underwent pupillage at the law firm of Mr. M.A. Odesanya. She subsequently worked at Chief F.R.A. Williams' law firm at Ibadan, Oyo, from 1963 to 1966. In 1966, she established the first female-owned law office in Ibadan, known as the Alabukun Law Chambers, in honor of her father. After practicing for several years, she was conferred with the rank of the Senior Advocate of Nigeria in 1981, becoming the first woman in Nigeria to be so conferred with this rank. In 1970, she joined Zonta International, a global organization of executives and business professionals working for the advancement of women. She is a member of the Zonta Club of Ibadan. In 1992, she was elected as the first non-Caucasian Zonta International president for the 1994 to 1996 term in Hong Kong. She has honorary degrees from Olabisi Onabanjo University, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, University of Ibadan, and the Nigerian Defense Academy in Kaduna. She has also been honored by numerous other institutions. She received the International Bar Association Distinguished International Women Lawyer Award in London in 2012. She has published over 100 books and papers, including in 2007, her autobiography titled Reaching for the Stars, the autobiography of Folake Sholanke. She married Dr. Toriola Sholanke in 1956, who sadly passed away in 2001. Together, they have 3 children. She enjoys reading, writing, speech making, walking, dancing, and elementary yoga. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Chief Folake Sholanke, SAN. You're welcome, madam.
We would like to invite to the high table our guest speaker for today's lecture, Professor Oyewusi Ibidapo Ube. You're welcome, sir. Professor Oyewusi Ibidapo Ube, BSc in Maths, PhD, FAS, FAAS, FANG, FASCE, OFR, is a distinguished professor, a former Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Akoka, Lagos State, between 2000 and 2007, and the Federal University, Ndufu Alike, Ikwo, Ebonyi State, between 2011 and 2016. He was conferred with the Order of Merit, Officer of the Order of the Federal Republic, OFR, by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Professor Ibidapo Obe attended Lagos Street African Church School in Ebutemeta from 1955 to 1961, and Ilesha Grammar School from 1962 to 1966. He went on to study at the Igbobi College in Yaba. In 1971, I beg your pardon, he proceeded to study mathematics at the prestigious University of Lagos, where he graduated with first-class honors. He has a doctorate degree from the University of Waterloo in Ontario, Canada. He has attended developmental programs at the Oxford University in England, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and Harvard University. He has also had several teaching and research engagements in the universities of Waterloo, Toronto, Texas Southern, and Penn States, to name a few. He was a Western Region Scholar, Commonwealth Scholar, and a Senior Fulbright Research Scholar, and has had several international teaching and research awards and exposures with over 200 publications. He was chairman of the Committee of Vice Chancellors and was adjudged the best Vice Chancellor for 2 years. Prior to his appointment as Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos in 2000, he served meritoriously as Head of Department and Dean of the Faculty. He was also the Chairman, Presidential Committee on Brain Drain, Pioneer National Coordinator of the UNDP TOC10, as well as the pioneering Managing Director of Unilag Consults. In addition, he was the President of the Nigerian Academy of Science between 2009 and 2013. Professor Ibidapo Obe is currently the Pro-Chancellor of the Technical University, Ibadan. I was conferred with the chieftaincy title, the Akbeluwa of Ile-Ife, in appreciation of his illustrious contributions to Osun State. Professor Ibidapo Obe is married to Mrs. Olushola Ibidapo Obe, the Yeye Akbeluwa of Ile-Ife, and they are blessed with 4 children and many grandchildren. He is indeed an eminent scholar and exceptionally qualified to deliver this lecture. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, please join us in welcoming to the high table Professor Yewusi Ibidapo Obe. You're welcome.
To complete this distinguished panel, we also have discussants who will lend their voices to the topic at hand. Our first discussant was born on 3rd January 1963. He is from Kabi Mongoro, within Kuje Area Council, Federal Capital Territory, Abuja. He was raised by the late Emir of Abuja, now Suleja, Alhaji Suleiman Barau, from whom the name Suleja was adopted by the federal government. Dr. Noma is a member of the National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies, NIPS Kuru, in Plateau State, hence his designation MNI. He is the current director of FCT UBE board. He attended LEA Primary School, Wuse, from 1968 to 1974, and GTC Abuja from 1974 to 1979. He then studied at the Federal College of Education, Pangshin, in 1980, and obtained his NCE, in 1983. He proceeded to study geography and education at the prestigious University of Jos in 1986. He has a master's degree in population studies, manpower planning and development from the University of Jos, and he also has a doctorate in population and manpower planning and development from the University of Abuja. Dr. Noma has held various educational posts in the FCT. He has been a class teacher, a vice principal, and was an inspector of primary schools in the Kuje Area Council, Abuja. He worked briefly with the Center for Democratic Studies, as well as the National Population Commission on Secondment. He served as the Education Secretary of Kuje Local Education Authority for 8 years. He was also an Assistant Director, Special Services and Programs at the FCT Administration Education Secretariat. From there, he was promoted to the rank of Deputy Director and appointed Secretary, FCT Agency for Mass Education, where he served for 2 years. Dr. Noma has served on different committees which were set up to promote education delivery in Nigeria. He was the president of the Nigerian Education Secretaries, a position he held until 2012. He was also appointed as the board secretary of the FCT Secondary Education Board in 2010, and he later became the acting director of the board. He was later elevated to the position of director, FCT UBA board, in 2012, a position he holds till date. Dr. Noma has won over 200 awards for his meritorious services. He was nominated by the FCT administration and finally selected by President Goodluck Jonathan to attend course 37 at the NIPSS. He obtained the award of Member of National Institute, MNI, upon completion of the course at NIPSS. He has 6 publications to his credit and has presented many papers. Dr. Noma is married with children. In addition to reading and engaging in academic discussion, he enjoys traveling and putting smiles on people's faces. He hates injustice. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the high table Dr. Adamu Jetau Noma, MNI.
Very much so, you're welcome. Apologies for the long biographies. We just thought it's important for us to have a clear idea as to where some of our speakers are coming from, and to even see the sort of experience they carry with them during the discussions. The next speaker we'll be calling up is Mrs. Adora Emily Ojo. She's a consummate educationist. Sorry, there she is. Mrs. Adora Emily Ojo. A round of applause, please, for her. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, please. Mrs. Ojo is a consummate educationist, counselor, and reformer with over 30 years professional teaching experience. She was the principal of the International School University of Lagos, ISL. Mrs. Ojo graduated from the University of Lagos with a bachelor's degree in philosophy in 1983. She is currently pursuing her doctorate degree in early childhood education at the University of Lagos. She started teaching in 1987 at Our Lady of Apostles Secondary School in Yaba, Lagos, where she taught history and English language until 1996. She acted as class and subject teacher, year tutor, member of the Literary and Debating Society, member of the Speech and Prize Giving Day Committee, matron of the Christian Students Fellowship and Red House, and she was an active member of the school's counseling team. While at Our Lady, she obtained a postgraduate diploma in education, PGDE. In 1996, she was transferred to Burrell Avenue Senior High School, Yaba, where she spent 12 years as a classroom and subject teacher, year tutor of final year students, member of the Speech and Prize Giving Day Committee, coordinator of the Literary and Debating Society, secretary to the Disciplinary Committee, secretary to the Continuous Assessment Committee, matron of the Blue House, and head of departments in languages. She was also appointed as the secretary of the school's Continuous Assessment Committee. In 2008, Mrs. Ojo was transferred to Fazil I. Omar Senior High School, Iwaya, and appointed as the vice principal. She oversaw and monitored the implementation and evaluation processes of the school's curriculum. She was the chairperson of the Continuous Assessment Committee, the Timetable Committee, Sports Committee, Co-Curriculum Committee, and of the Students' Representative Council. Mrs. Ojo has attended a number of professional and management training programs organized by the Lagos State Teachers Establishment and Pension Office, the British Council, and some private management outfits within and outside Nigeria. She is a registered member of the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria, the English Language Teachers Association of Nigeria, the British Council English Language Teaching Contract Scheme, and a former executive member of the Lagos State Chapter of the English Language Teachers Association of Nigeria. In recognition of her outstanding performance, and after she emerged as the best vice principal in District 4 for senior schools in the same year, the Lagos State government awarded her the second best vice principal in Lagos State senior schools in 2010. After a rigorous recruitment process, Mrs. Ojo was appointed as the principal of International School University of Lagos, ISL, where she served for 6 years between 2011 and 2017. She was a volunteer teacher and later served as director of her church community vacation school for over 12 years. She is married to Tunde Uju, and they are blessed with 4 children and a grandson. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the podium Mrs. Adora Emily Uju. You're welcome, ma'am. Thank you.
Our next discussant is Swanta Blessing Bonat. Swanta Blessing Bonat is from Samaru Kataf of Zangwon Kataf local government area of Kaduna State. She is currently the head teacher and principal of KYC Academy, Sagwaza Gora, a nursery, primary, and secondary school in one of the rural communities of Zangwon Kataf local government area in Kaduna State, with the desire to operate the school in accordance with the 21st century school model. She is a certified teacher with the Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria and an educator with special interest in child development. She has been dedicated to the cause of ensuring that children, particularly those in the rural areas, acquire quality education. She has a BA in education from the University of Jos and a master's degree in Christian education from the Theological Seminary in Jos. In July 2016, she left her job in Abuja to return to her rural hometown as a volunteer teacher at the community school where she taught literacy to children in primary 1 for about 10 months. Within 3 months, she was able to get financial assistance from her friends to transform her rural class into a standard classroom, obtain learning materials for her pupils, and secure funding to connect the school to the main source of water supply in the community. She started the staff room with Swanta, a teachers group on Facebook in April 2016, to help teachers network, share their stories, and seek help when needed. She also started the Rural English Literacy Program in August 2016 to help public school children sharpen their English literacy skills for free. So far, the program has helped close to 100 children. She has a book club in her house where school children can read books and interact. Swanta is a firm believer that children, irrespective of ethnicity, location, religion, and social status, have the right to quality education. This gave birth to an NGO called Community Outreach for Educational Change, a project that she believes will change the status quo by providing educational support for children in rural and disadvantaged areas. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Blessing Swanta Bonat to the high table. With all due respect, we now invite the chair lady, Chief Folake Sholanke, to give her opening remarks. Let's see.
I'm extremely grateful to you for that wonderful reception. I want you to know that I arrived at 1:30. I was just waiting quietly for you to arrive. Because time is of the essence. And Nigeria is losing a lot because we do not have respect for time. There's no African time. You're either punctual or you're late. Thank you for coming. Now, where do I start? Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN, members of Aelex, a very famous law office. My learned friends in the one and only learned profession, both of the inner bar, additional, and outer bar. the brilliant discussants, not to talk of the very special guest speaker, Professor Bidapo Obe. I extend my profound gratitude to my learned friend of the silk, Funke Adekoya, SAN, hereinafter called Funke, one of the brightest and leading legal stars, not only in Nigeria, but on the global legal landscape. And her equally brilliant partners and their competent team for the gracious invitation extended to me to be the chairman of the auspicious 12th anniversary event. I'm delighted to be here, and I thank God for His grace in bringing all of us here today. I can tell you that last month, I didn't think I would be able to come, but we thank God that we're all here. Now, there's a story behind my presence here. It is a story that I like to tell, and I'm sure the eminent guests here will like to hear the story, won't you? You know, I made sure I didn't use the word distinguished. I used eminent, because distinguished has a different name in the Senate. About 5 years ago, before my 80th birthday, Funke invited me to be the chairman of this well-reputed annual lecture. Regrettably, I could not accept because I was traveling abroad. It was a painful situation for me, as I really wanted to participate in the Aelex annual celebration. However, I told Funke to repeat the invitation so I could come and demonstrate my support for her. Then year after year, no invitation came. Sometime this year, I reminded her again for the umpteenth time of the postponed invitation. In any event, I decided to take the matter out of Funke's jurisdiction. When I was abroad last month, I made up my mind that in my 85th year, upon my return home in November, after resting for a week, I would write to Funke thus. This is the letter. My beloved Funke, I hereby appoint myself as the chairman of your next lecture. Please let me have the date. However, lo and behold, maybe through telepathy, during the week when I was resting at home, a telephone call came from Bisang Obi Akachak of Aelex Law Chambers, informing me that they would like me to be the chairman of this year's lecture. I asked him for the date. What a relief it was for me that the date was free in my diary. I told the young lawyer that I was about to write the following week to invite myself and to dare them to refuse my self-appointment. We both had a good laugh, and here I am. Praise be to God. I'm glad that you enjoyed the story. Now, let me extend my high commendation to Aelex for the annual lecture series. It is part of your effort to give something back to the society in which you have excelled. It is also part of the biblical injunction to love our neighbor as ourselves and to be our brother's keeper, unlike Cain, who had the temerity and the audacity to ask God if he was his slain brother's keeper. The title of the lecture is as germane as it is frightening. Schooling without learning. Implicit in that bewildering title is the calamity of wasted years in educational institutions without gaining much knowledge. In our legal profession, we like to describe ourselves as learned. The meaning of being learned is knowing the law. Undoubtedly, the well-formulated and apt title is the result of observations of Aelex as the abysmal performance of some lawyers at the bar. Sometimes, some of them are lacking in advocacy, good appearance, proper decorum, appropriate language, courtesy, learning. I confess that I am often appalled that some bring shame to the learned profession. After law school, there must be a period of pupillage before independent legal practice. I am anxiously awaiting the truly learned Professor Ibidapo Obe, the keynote speaker, to articulate the title with his well-known erudition. I also salute the brilliant discussants. In proof of the unprofessional behavior of some so-called lawyers, permit me to read about my outrage and admonition concerning their shortcomings as expressed in one of my book of lectures. I was giving a lecture, this was part of it. Misconduct and unprofessional language. Now, to young lawyers and to others who point fingers at judges on the bench from the bar and address them as you, be it known that the correct way of addressing a judge is my lord, or your lordship, or the court. It is an aberration to be rude to a judge. You who are present here should warn the other finger pointers who are lawyers not to do it again. Where were those so-called lawyers trained? In whose law chambers do they practice law? There's no you on the bench. Of course, there must be mutual respect between the bar and the bench. The lawyers who like to say, okay, yeah, hi, young, honestly, I ask them to put a stop to it. It's not professional language. End of quote. I read this at the recent inaugural SANS dinner, but it is worth repeating. Please be reminded that one of the reasons underscoring the poverty of advocacy is that some law students and lawyers do not read. They cut and paste from the internet and do not read and apply their own brains. They are copying other people's work on the continent, on the internet. Any good lawyer will admit that the reading culture must be cultivated for life by lawyers, young and old. Reading is a lifelong addiction for lawyers. Lawyers must improve their English, the language of the court, by reading widely. I refer to the book, Oral and Written Advocacy, Law and Practice, Traditional and Modern Trends in Advocacy. The book was published last year and presented on my 84th birthday. It was written by the chairman of today. As lead author, and Professor Fabian Ajoku, SAN, as co-author. With all due modesty, some judges in open court have advised lawyers to buy the book. I recommend the book to you not because I'm the lead author, but because of its acclaimed quality. Now, reading nurtures the soul, expands the reader's horizon, sharpens the intellect, enhances knowledge, increases the vocabulary, refines language, facilitates social and communication skills. It is a most profitable way of spending time so that our youth are not forever glued to the television screen, cell phones, and internet with all its merits and, of course, its horrors like pornography, nudity, etc. St. Paul in 1 Timothy chapter 4 verse 13 admonished Timothy to, I quote, "Till I come, give attendance to reading." That's St. Paul. In closing, I commend Aelex for the annual scholarly endeavor. Such a program is continuing legal education, which is a sine qua non for a practicing lawyer who has the right orientation to professional excellence. It is part of our leadership role to help supply what is lacking in schooling without learning. I pray that your intellectual input will improve the learning of law students and lawyers. No doubt, this is the purpose of today's auspicious program. Now, before I resume my seat, let me assure the Master of Ceremonies that I am not a spectator chairman. I intervened already when I invited the discussants to come on stage to be celebrated. My intervention does not end with my chairman's remarks. I occupy the chair to be in control of the proceedings. The MC and I will work together to ensure an enjoyable and productive event. Thus, the MC should consult me from time to time for direction, particularly if there's to be any change in the program. In peroration to the great audience, please relax, drop your shoulders, and enjoy the event. I thank you for coming again and for your kind attention. If Mr. Olu Adekoya, Funke's beloved spouse, is in the audience, I ask you to please stand for recognition wherever you are. I'm chairman, where are you? I thank you, Mr. Adekoya, for allowing Funke the space to flourish in her chosen legal profession and career. I urge other spouses of lawyers so to do. To Aelex and my dear Funke, I wish you many happy returns of the day. Ad annus multos. I pause with my appreciation to you for being such a splendid and responsive audience. Thank you. Thank you. Well done.
I think I speak for everyone when I say thank you very much, Madam Chair Lady, for setting the scene. We're indeed honored that you accepted our timely, or should I say late invitation, as it may be. Thank you, ma. Would like to now invite to the podium the speaker of today's topic, Schooling Without Learning, Professor Ibidapo Obi. Welcome, sir.
Mr. Chairman, clearly, if we're given an opportunity for Mr. Chairman to play the role that Margaret Thatcher played in the UK, we'll never have schooling without learning. It's clear that all schools will be an institution of learning. Thank you very much, ma. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank Aelex for this opportunity they've given me. I truly appreciate. I want to thank my dear Tope, who has been talking to me. I want to thank Lawrence, Chief Fubara Anga, Mr. Soji Awogbadi, Mrs. Funke Adekoya, SAN, and many, many folks at Aelex for inviting me to present this address so that we can discuss it as this 12th annual lecture. I'm honored to be here under, of course, what else could I have wanted? Distinguished chairmanship of Chief Folake Sholanke, SAN, CON, and of course, the very distinguished discussants. Today's theme of the annual lecture, Schooling Without Learning, brings vividly to my mind those theorems and lemmas in algebra and functional analysis where a necessary condition is not sufficient to even prove an hypothesis. In effect, schooling is not sufficient to learn. What then are the sufficient conditions to learn in school? We'll talk about that. That is the theorem. And usually when we have a theorem, we also ask for a lemma. A lemma is another way, not exact opposites of theorems. Can learning exist without schooling? Yes, you can learn because you learn every day without schooling. Whatever you learn, we don't know. Perhaps you don't learn algebra, you don't learn physics, you don't learn chemistry, but you learn life skills. Before we continue, let me see, I made some slides. Let's first look at the first slide so that we can have a context, the first one. The first, before Yes. Now, I saw this somewhere. And that was when I visited Ghana, and I discovered that most of the universities in Ghana, you have a population of more than 50% Nigerians, sometimes as high as 80%. So what we have, Nigerian top Africans studying abroad. Yes, even in the United States. 2 weeks ago, I was at Lubbock in very far north of Texas. And there are 91 Nigerians studying at Lubbock, the largest group of Africans. I've never been to Lubbock except 2 weeks ago. So this guy, that's the professor. Perhaps myself, or more appropriately, Chief Mrs. Folake Sholanke, says, hey, remember, charity begins at home. Let's go to the first one. The next slide, please. Now, what I did is to have a system, a box system here, whereby we have an input, it goes through a system, then you have an output, and see what consists that. Our input, of course, are the children or the students. There's a population pressure. When I went to school, Nigeria's population was maybe about 20, 22 million. Probably not even up to that. But today we are looking at 180 million. So there's a lot of pressure on the school system. And because of a concept that came at one time, I don't know whether we call it NTB, based on the conference they had in NTB, and they took it solely that says all children must attend school. So we have a lot of underprepared and poor quality entrance to the system. Now, of course, in the system you have schools, infrastructure, teachers, of course, what to teach, the curriculum, ethics, attitude, funding. The partner was telling me that in their own days, civic was a very important subject. I remember hygiene was very, very important in Ebute Metta, where I went to school. Depreciating capacity of higher education output. The teachers that teach, what do they know? We'll talk about that because we also grade teachers as we grade engineers. So if you want to pass, a regular pass, what people call let my people go, is 40%. Now, sometimes I wonder if a teacher has scored 40% and is going to teach, so it's using 40% to teach. So obviously, and the students will pass at 40%. So the students exactly will know 16%. Is that fair? That's a linear regression. And then 40% of 16%, 8 point something percent. So by the time you get to the next to the third generation of teachers, the students actually learn nothing. All right? So funding, facilities, management efficiency. But at the output now are these learners. They are learners, they are graduates, they are supposed to contribute to national development. When we went to school, there is a curve that goes on to inspectorate. I remember that inspectors come into our schools almost all the time, different types of inspectors. And they make notes, and they get back to our teachers and our principal. Right now, from where I've gone through, I don't see too many inspectors even getting to the classrooms and teaching. I remember Professor Mrs. Grace Alele Williams as an inspector when I was a student at Igobi College. Now, the next slide will show just what I put, or what I've said, input, the process itself, which is the system, and the output. What output we need. That is what we want to achieve. Skilled and employable graduates, responsible citizens, economic and social development, production of new knowledge that we can use. We want to go beyond what Aelex put as the answer to food poisoning. We believe that people should know much more than that. So we want to do some definitions. Oftentimes, there are misperceptions and misconceptions as to terms that are used in several of our discussions. Schooling, learning, education, knowledge, wisdom, and so on. Schooling is a process that implies attendance at a place of instruction, where the key character is the teacher, who imparts knowledge, if he has, so as to impress upon the mind. The key word here is that the teacher is supposed to have skills to impress on the mind. And as you know, the mind is a very dangerous thing. If the teacher we are getting now is the third generation of a teacher who got a degree or NCE or certificate with 40%, so you can imagine that it's going to impact 0 on the mind, or negative. If it's 0, it's all right. The procedure or methodology to impress upon the mind or specific instruction results in learning. We learn when we gain knowledge and skills. Education is the totality of the process of bringing up to training through instruction, teaching at a school or institution. Ordinarily, an educated person must have learned something through a series of instructions, preferably in a school or at an institution. There are several theories of education that favors teaching in school amongst age groups within the sociological and perhaps psychological context. You recall some people are private teachers. Their children don't go to school at all. They're aristocrats. They come and meet them at home. But their behavior is usually deviant from what the society norms are. I remember a good description of a school. I can't remember I don't know whether some of you remember this book we call Eze Goes to School. It was a popular novel by Onora Nzeku and Michael Crowder. Even at Eze's time, there are challenges in the school and the school system. But now, as the physical schools exist, there are several NGOs. In fact, in certain parts of our country, we see a predominance of mission schools and private schools. There are many more during our time, mission schools and private schools, as there are government schools. Schools were established under strict compliance with set standards by government. Buildings were kept clean and functional. Teachers were happy, prim and proper. Inspectors were permanently nosing around. Parents were duly integrated in the child's education and progress, and all was well. Then, gradually, disaster struck. First, with the takeover of schools by successive military governments, integration into the civil service and subsequent demotivation of teachers. And of course, teachers now see themselves as civil servants and gradually get immersed in those practices which is not good for the society. And a total massacre of the competitive spirit among schools in debates, essay writing, scholarship examination, and even in sports. The death knell is almost of zero funding cause all the episodical problems that we have. Oops. Getting back to our definitions and explanation of terms. Wisdom is the ability to make the right use of knowledge, learning, prudence, common sense, and so on. So even with the best of learning, you may still lack wisdom. It is obvious, therefore, now that you can go ahead to school without learning. In fact, they can be independent activities. So how do we get out of here? Let's look at innovations management. Now, what they do, we need fresh ideas. We need to get fresh ideas that will take us from where we are to where we want to be. I'm not looking too far. I'm only trying to say, let us look at the situation as it were when I was in school, maybe some 30, 40 years ago. I don't want you to know my age. How do we restructure the promise of schooling of yesteryears? We need to go beyond emergency, which the president said we are now, to innovations. We have to encourage innovations. But let me explain this, my concept of innovations. Innovations management is defined as a process or procedure of starting the idea with idea generation, as I indicated there, to successful implementation. The management of innovations includes the decision-making to implement innovation strategy for the organization. Innovations can be incremental. It could be a breakthrough or disruptive in nature. Incremental innovation is a constant improvement in existing products, services, processes, or methods. For instance, some of you might not know that in late 50s and early 60s, in Lagos, we go to school in shift. You know, I've gone to afternoon shift, and we know afternoon shift is not good for us. There was a total elimination of afternoon shift in Lagos during the tenure of Alhaji Lateef Jakonde, if you remember. And also in Ibadan by Chief Kola Ige. What was the problem at that time was there was not sufficient infrastructure for all of us to be in school and use the facilities that were so constructed. Some of these facilities are still standing till today. So it was decided that some of us will come in the morning and some of us will come in the afternoon. But you could imagine what a 10-year-old will be doing at home in the morning, getting ready to go to school in the afternoon. That was not what we wanted. So that was incremental innovation when it did a transformation and built those schools, which most of us didn't like because they didn't have windows. But was able to satisfy that objective of saying no child will go to school in the afternoon. A breakthrough innovation, however, involves a technological advancement that changes the nature of existing products or services. One of the things that people talk about is the admission process in the universities. The issue of JAMB, UTME, and the post-UTME, and of course, implementation of other innovations in the university. That will be a disruptive innovation. You can imagine if today the federal government or the president makes a declaration, no more catchment area. You want to come to the university, you do an exam, you are taking solely on merit. It's going to transform a lot of things in education. In fact, I posit that even the private sector will show more interest in education. However, disruptive innovation radically changes the nature of the product or services. This could include entire business model of even the organization. The MOOC, by leading global universities, could change entire business model of traditional universities. For example, if, as I said, university admissions are simply merit-based, no catchment, no discretion, no what they call educational less disadvantaged state. That's going to shake all of us out. What has been happening in the UK is that top universities, except Oxford and Cambridge, have gone to establish in Malaysia, in Thailand, and all over the world. If you want that education, they bring it to your doorsteps. That's part of innovation. Mr. Chairman, the rise of artificial intelligence and machine learning pose a significant disruption to universities of the future. In an online publication on artificial intelligence, the author argued that intelligent machines break concept that computers can only do as they are told. For example, an artificial intelligence recently discovered Newton's second law and derived equation of motion. You remember the pendulum? Well, that was one of the first things we are taught in physics. Now you can have double pendulum actually moving. And a double pendulum system by doing experiments for itself on a double pendulum. Ross, that's a super intelligent attorney, like all of you lawyers, that's caused the entire body of law, has trained IBM's Watson cognitive computer to do paralegal work. Watson already handles simple cases by itself. Sometimes they call this intelligent assistant. Artificial intelligence is also able to make medical diagnosis, and there are robot surgeons. In addition, financial systems that run on algorithms are being developed. The question now is what happens when the professional jobs for which university prepares students are now taken over by intelligent machines. So we should start to think of when everything we want to know has been taken over by intelligent machines. In preparing for the future, it is important that leaders think about innovation and be able to effectively manage resource and change. That will be a purposeful education. There was a report by the University of Oxford on the future of employment, how susceptible is jobs to computerization. The report shows that nearly 50% of US jobs are at risk from technological advancement. And this is almost certainly an underestimate. Optimists say that new jobs will appear, but they are unable to give a single concrete example as where those new jobs will come. There will soon be no jobs needing proof of academic ability. So if we are not careful, all our academic ability and our knowledge might be bottled with this intelligent machine. Similarly, the Times Higher Education in the UK invited leading academic experts to imagine what university would look like in 2030. How would these prophecies look to future generations? Universities are just purveyors of knowledge and skills. They are social institutions designed especially to make students wise. And wisdom does not come only from lectures. Students also acquire it from one another. In our diverse institutions, they learn tolerance, acceptance, fair play, and how to address judges. The net effect of the above is that our schools are not ready for the future. Now, let's come back home and look at contemporary issues so that we'll see why we need innovation. When I was told about this topic, I asked myself, why does Aelex want to bring their chamber's thoughts on schooling without learning to the open? I can only guess that most of the products of the schooling system that comes their way do not reflect the type of learning they expect. The glaring evidence is the massive unemployment of the university graduates, where conservatively more than 45% of the post-NYSC graduates are not employed, or maybe not employable. This is one of the recurring issues in Nigeria's development. From the abuse of our diversity through this federal character system and national character, which manifests in an unholy federal character principle, state of origin, everything has permeated. My house is like an institution. It's a local government on its own. This has resulted in hunger and human insecurity, non-qualitative and non-functional education, health and welfare, including poor shelters and non-conducive environment, as well as poor governance leading to endemic corruption and greed. There is naturally so much dissatisfaction in the air as the populace are generally unable to meet up with basic aspirations in life. In our days, it is possible for a poor parent to spend all the money he has or she has on his ward, on his child, hoping clearly that the future will be better. I don't think that linear relationship exists anymore. Sometimes, even now, we see some flickers of hope, such as the one meal per day for pupils in basic education classes, the N system, and the CBN Anchor program that are geared towards self-employment and useful contribution to national development. They are soon deemed because of the various abuses of our diversity. Diversity should be positive as it breeds stronger and more versatile offsprings if competition is encouraged. Our economy is just emerging from depression of negative growth. We had in 2010 a predicted conservatively 5% growth in our GDP. But there is no productivity. Nobody is producing anything. So that made it impossible for governments to balance their income and expenditure accounts. Even now, with the new budget, you know we have to supplement with a lot of borrowing, even though I'm told by economics that borrowing is still permissible. With zero productivity, no new jobs were created, and the school graduates are unable to fit the bill because they went to school without learning. The education sector today is in doldrums, and President Buhari has said the obvious, perhaps a little too late. An emergency has been declared in the sector. I do concur the need for an emergency, but what next? What are the set targets? We had it in the press, but there's an emergency. We'll have been happier to also, at the same time, know what is next. What are we going to do about emergency? What are the set targets? What time are we expected to reach where we are going to do? What do we do to exit the emergency in education? There are underlying factors to all this, especially poverty and its consequences of hunger, illiteracy, unbridled population growth. In the original chart I showed you, that population, as I said, more children at the growth rate of 3.5%. There are more children coming into the system that are going to go to school that no provisions have been made for. We've forgotten that aspect of planning that is able to see the future. Our planning, we all concentrate on the budget for the year, which comes late, which is never fully funded. So, yes, it says yes to more funding, but we need more than funding to achieve the desired turnaround. Throwing money at this challenge or these challenges are not likely to do the turnaround. It has to be a systematic upgrade of the system. Within a macro framework, our solution lies in the search for and utilization of knowledge, knowledge to grow as economy, knowledge to add value to our products, knowledge to feed ourselves, and possibly export our products as services. This knowledge will only be fueled by proper education. We often talk about technology-driven economies that we were at par with in 1950s and 1960s. You see people talking about Malaysia, South Korea, Singapore, China, even Vietnam. But forget to recognize and the reason they tell why of their emergence, which is science, they're able to change. Some of them that are importing primary products have changed to semiconductors. And they are doing excellently very well. They just have to make a decision to change. And all these changes that have made all these countries I've mentioned, and many more, is what we call science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. There has been a consistent program in those countries to ensure that people think science. For example, at the same time when we were at par with Malaysia and all of them, there is a policy, education policy in Nigeria, which they call 60-40, bias for science, so that when you do admissions in our institution, 60% of the students will be science, and 40% will be humanities, including law, for that matter. And this was as far back as early 60s. But up to now, nobody has been able to fulfill, including, unfortunately for us, even the universities of technologies and universities of agriculture. They find a way to bring humanities back into the fold. So it has been almost impossible to achieve. Where is the way to enforce such policy in our public funded institution? The resultant output, of course, is that our leaders and policy makers cannot think science and cannot appreciate the need to boost education. The education project has not exceeded 10% since the advent of the democratic governance in this country. This is just compared with what we saw to the expenditure budget of the First Republic, the Ahmadu Bello's, the Obafemi Awolow's, and the Okpara. The budget ranged from about 45%, which was the least, to about 56% in certain regions of the country. So no wonder that even if there was a mass need to train teachers in Western region in those days, modern schools were actually established. Modern schools were just a holding bay for those of them to go to teacher training colleges and then subsequent to university for those of them. But even an NC teacher, or what we call in those days a pivotal teacher, is happy to be a teacher. We need attitudinal change to education to be propelled by our leaders so that it can be given the pride of place in budgetary allocations and promptness in harvesting innovative products from those institutions. Now, I would want to talk about funding plus. As I said, at the inception of the PMB administration, the Center for Human Security, that's the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, in a publication titled Towards a New Dawn in Nigeria, published by Olusegun Obasanjo himself, Professor Akinmaboye, and Peter Okebokola, listed the following major recommendations on education, science, technology, and innovation. This is in the paper, and the whole idea is that the president must own the process of itself, which is just starting. We've seen him talking to us on the need to declare an emergency in education. And at the UB Act 2004, that we need to actually implement it. There is a lot of problems here because there is a distinct difference between the way we bring our children up in the southern part of the country and in the north. This concept of Sangaya, or you call it Almajiri education program, that we need to find a way to integrate. You see children that are just 4 or 5 years old roaming the streets with balls to collect hams. So we need to find a way to clean them off the street so that they are in schools. Give utmost priority to safety in schools. Can you continue? That's about access in education. Next slide, please. Reform teacher preparation, which I will talk about briefly. That is the problem. For example, I mean, let's face it. A teacher cannot pass primary 4 exam. Has no business in the classrooms. Let's forget politics. There are other areas where they can work. There are farms in Kaduna State. Even if they don't have enough land in Kaduna State, they can go to Kwara State and let them go and farm. At worst, let them be motor parked out. That is absolutely. Now, so detail, there should be power supply. The whole idea here, I think about 15 of them, the whole idea here is that we need to make schools more attractive than homes. I remember when I was a young boy, my school had water system. My school has good gardens. You can see the flowers. We learn about hibiscus flower and so on and so forth. It was interesting to go to school. But now, if you ask a kid to go to school, public school, he's going to be crying. He's not interested in going. So obviously, when he's in school, his mind is not going to be there. So apart from the issue of funding, infrastructure provision, public perception of teachers, student enthusiasm to learn in school, to exit emergency situation, we must focus on some other salient issues. First, the teachers. Poorly prepared to teach for understanding and application of concepts. They are poorly prepared. They don't even understand what they are teaching themselves. It's just a way to go while we are preparing to get another job. The methodology for teaching most school subjects is what they call didactic, which means I just pour it out and then you just copy it and go. And does not result in meaningful learning. It results in memorization and rote learning. Concepts that are not learned cannot be utilized by students. Second is the school environment. I don't know how many of us have tried to go to see our formal schools or any primary school around us before. Even secondary school. Massive infrastructure improvement is required. It must be pleasurable for pupils to leave home and go to school. The school environment must be as convivial, if not better than home environment. The feeding program is very good and necessary, but not sufficient condition. By the way, I would like to plead again that TED Fund that was funding school through the, when they started, funding primary and secondary school, maybe we should go back and increase that scope so that they can actually do some massive infrastructure development in such schools. The home environment. The learners are coming into school handicapped by their home environment. Poverty being the #1 handicap. Language, of course, is another handicap. Shouldn't we look at what Professor Basawa said about the theory of local language as a means of instruction in primary basic schools? We notice that each of those countries, what they call the Asian tigers, that in their primary school, a local language is used to teach the students. Perhaps we should look at that. Perhaps we look at that advantage. English will still be taught as a national language, but on basic things we need to look so that the kids will not have to translate, and that will just break up his innate abilities. The other thing is assessment system. The inspectorate, which I mentioned about that time, we have virtually done away with it. The assessment system does not test understanding, but rote memorization. Tests used at low levels of cognition domain. Consequently, if the test does not measure understanding, why teach or learn for understanding? So the vicious cycle continues. We also need to re-examine the objective and the multiple choice modes of assessment of our students. In most courses now, in most of the universities, except perhaps law and to some extent medicine, everything is multiple choice examination. That is not good enough. And I suspect that is why those of our graduates are not articulate. They just can't put things down. If you ask them to write a report, you are going to upset them a lot. Therefore, a primary remedy is massive teacher training and retraining to equip teachers with methods and skills that will foster teaching for understanding and application. This needs planning, implementation, and monitoring to be supported by adequate funding in an open and transparent manner. It is saddening to note the incompetencies of public school teachers, which I think is all over Nigeria. It's just Kaduna and Edo State are examples of what is going on. They have no business, as I said, in the classroom, because you have to unteach what they teach somehow for them to be useful to the society. Yes. I also support that, that test that was done in Kaduna, the pass mark was put at 70%. I also support that this test should be conducted even on a continuous basis. If you're a teacher, then you must prepare to know much more than your students. You must strive to know more than your students. I also believe that teachers' welfare should be a priority. You should be proud to be a teacher. You should be comfortable to be a teacher. You should not spend all your time trying to find other things to do. In conclusions, Madam Chairman, from our systems analysis viewpoint, it is possible to school without learning. Learning is made possible by sets of endogenous and exogenous factors. The exogenous factors will have to be provided by governments. These variables include funding, teachers' competencies, teachers' welfare, the facilities and infrastructure available in those schools, the support of even parents from home, as well as government priority to education. Those who set schools should be encouraged based on standard scales of performance. Over the years, the input population of children have gone high exponentially with decreased resources in the system. The resultant output, of course, is that the little money that government throws in education is now spread over more than 100 times the population that they were using it for during in yesteryears. It is better. It was Mrs. Obi Ezekwesili in 2006 as Minister of Education who postulated that it is better for us to take the children to school in the morning and lock them up themselves, no teachers, and then come back and take them, that whatever they need to learn, they will learn from themselves. Yeah. And then we must ensure that any school at all that is going to be on, we will not accept alternative to practicals. That also kills skills. When you read and just say alternative to practicals, we must stop all that. This year's 2017 WAEC results came out with only 26.1% of all the 136,485 students that took the exam. This 26% is about both students, both English language and mathematics. But the number is saddening enough, which means 1 in every 5. But last year, in 2015, it was 28.58% and 38% in 2016. When I saw this, I said, oh, no wonder that the JAMB score now is 120. You know, because again, that is a benchmark. Of course, I've said in other places that that should not have been announced at all. It's just sufficient to say everybody must take UME exam. If you like score 0, you should just come and take it, and then you go to the university. Because we cannot accept that the Nigerian standard is 120 out of 400. It's not acceptable at all. This is shameful, and needs an urgent turnaround. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, within the global version, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Rules, it is quite clear that to achieve those goals in 2030, we need to have serious improvements in the education sector. We must focus on knowledge acquisition and transformation by value addition to our mineral resources. Exporting minerals is not it. Knowledge is very important. But there is some hope. Hope that when these students that are so bad, that has gone to school without learning, when they are able to wriggle out the boundaries of Nigeria, they go to the United States, they go to Europe. They brush up for 6 months. They become experts. So there must be something in our gene. I was just discussing with one of the discussants about gene. Maybe, in fact, there's something in the gene, in the Nigerian environments, that make us work very hard. We must focus on knowledge acquisition, value addition. As latecomers to emerging technologies, what is going to rule the world in the next 10, 15, 20 years. We must catch up through leapfrogging and stay ahead by innovations. There must be an alignment of government, industry, and the academia, especially our national academies. Now everybody does his own on separate ways. We must stop that. Given the remarkable feats, as I said, that Nigerian professionals are doing overseas and turning around, if we turn around our school system, Nigeria will be great again. Thank you very much.
Applaud the very scientific and analytical exposition of Professor, and also to thank him for his very innovative paper, which has all the instructions and all the diagrams. Very, very good. I'm very happy to have a copy of this. It's very, very educational. Thank you so much. So the MC can come and introduce the next discussant.
Thank you very much, sir, for that very eloquent and provoking lecture. Can I just give one round of applause? It's now time for the discussion session of this lecture, and I once again respectfully invite our chair lady, Chief Lanke SAN, to chair this session. Madam Chair Lady.
It's some water, sir.
Oh, yeah, sure. Okay. So, our first discussant will be Dr. Barrow. Sir.
Protocol. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, when I was contacted that I would be part of this program, when I got the invitation letter, I looked at the subject matter, and it was saying that schooling without learning. Even before reading any other paragraph, I now questioned the person who brought the letter to me. I said, why? Why have you decided to now say schooling without learning? So I said, well, in academic circle anyway, the null hypotheses are normally stated so that at the end of the research activities, they are rejected. So I want to align myself with a prof that it is scary when you now say schooling without learning. It is so terrifying. But now, schooling without learning. Now, what of if we had said schooling and learning? What of if we had equally said schooling for learning? What of if we had said schooling by learning? What of if we had said learning in schooling? What of if we had said learning and schooling? Well, it may not sound grammatically right, but I just want you to think about them. But when you talk about schooling without learning, means that you are talking about the totality of all the problems that have bedeviled the educational system in Nigeria. Now, that takes you one to talk about, first of all, what is a school? What is a school? If you now say schooling without learning, and then what is learning? Now, a school is normally a place or an environment where it's deliberately set for changes in attitude to take place. Now, what is learning? Learning has to do with change in attitude. Something new must have come to the person who is said to be learning. So, if that is the case, there are so many factors that have to do with the challenges of education in Nigeria. And some of these challenges may include, one, the curricular issues. Now, curriculum has to do with all the experiences a learner gains. Now, these experiences that a learner gains, we are now referring to in the school environment now, these experiences, some are designed while others are not designed. So when you are talking about curriculum, you are talking about those things that are designed and those things that are not even intended for at all. But the learners acquire them. Now, the prof has discussed most of this, I can say even all the challenges, those things that are in the educational system in Nigeria. And because I have been warned that I have been given very few minutes to talk, I just want to summarize some of those things. But I want to use practical examples to what our dear guest speaker has said. And I will take them like this. Now, why I want to do this is that I have been privileged to serve as a local government education secretary in Nigeria. And I became the national president. Now, the implication is that I have an idea of all the educational activities in all the states in Nigeria. I equally have the privilege, while I was in National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies School, JOS, we visited all the states in Nigeria, and we saw the educational system in each state. And I can tell anybody the educational system in most of the countries in Nigeria. Now, let me just quickly go to some of those challenges, some of those things that may give rise to people schooling without necessarily learning. Now, one, just as the prof said, one has to do with government policies. Our policies, our educational policies are always constantly being changed when they are not even supposed to be changed at that time. Every day, people talk about reviewing the educational policies. Yes, educational policies are not supposed to be static. But people go to anywhere. They go to different fora, they meet, even meet in any places, in fact, including drinking parlors, where people go and they take decisions, and then the next thing, you now see them writing memorandum to the federal government that the curriculum needs to be changed. That is too bad. That is too bad for the educational system. Now, the other issue that that I will say here is the issue of the management issues. What of the educational managers? Now, assuming all those things that are needed for educational activities in Nigeria that are made available, now what of the educational managers? Are our educational programs or systems properly managed by those who are saddled with the responsibility of managing education? The answer is no. Now, let me tell you something. I want to tell you that when the UB program started in 2000, when President Obasanjo launched the UB program in Sokoto in 1989, the first UB school that was launched where the president registered UBE children, it was done in my local government then, when I was the local education authority secretary. It was a school that was under me. So the first UB school in Nigeria is located in FCT. It is there. Now you need to go back to that school and see what is happening in that same school today. Now, you now find out that what has been spent in the UBE program. I want to tell you that if the monies that are said to have been spent in the UBE program were properly spent for the purposes for which they were meant, our educational system today will not be what it is. I want to tell you that, especially at the basic level. So you find out that even, in fact, 50% of such funds were not properly spent for the purpose for which they were meant for. Now, the issue of funding. Funding is a big challenge. Now, if we are talking about educational funding, we are talking about adequate funding. Nobody is talking about surplus, because nowhere in the world that you have all the monies you need for a particular program, because there are so many challenging needs that need funding today. But what we are talking about is adequate funding of education. It should be adequately funded. If that is done, we feel that there will be a serious improvement in the educational activity. That is one of the reasons why so many states don't care about what happens to education. In fact, sometimes if you look at this year's budget, in some states, I don't think the funds that have been allocated to educational activities in their state may not be more than 3 to 4 or 5% of the entire state budget. That is too bad for education, because no nation can grow above the level of its educational development. Now, what of, now, oh God. Now, what of manpower issues? I want to tell you that I am a professional teacher. I am a certified teacher. But I want to tell you that we have serious problems with our teachers. Just as the prof said, all the states, no state has all the qualified teachers it needs. Even the states that they have a lot of manpower, they are being wasted. Those that are qualified are not brought into the system. And when you are talking about qualified teachers, for you to get qualified teachers, we all know what it takes. But if you are in a leadership position and you want to do recruitment, if you are maybe local government education secretary or whatever in the state ministry of education, and the governor brings his list, do you have the audacity to tell him that you are not going to employ his own candidates? Now, these are some of the challenges. So we find it very, very difficult to bring in those who are actually willing, those who have the passion for teaching processes in our schools. So anybody is being brought into the system. If you go to some of our schools, despite the fact that TRC spells that nobody should hold chalk, nobody should hold a pen, nobody should stand before learners to teach if he's not professionally qualified. We still have people who teach who are not qualified. But unfortunately, some researchers have indicated that even some of the best people who teach are not professionally qualified. Well, that is food for thought. It's not for discussion here. Now, what of the environmental, the learning environmental, the learning environment? That is one of our serious problems. Now, learning environment has to do with infrastructure. If you go to our schools, if I had come with my iPad, in my iPad I have over 7,000 photographs across all the states in Nigeria here. If I tell you, if I show you some pictures, you will cry. Where children from our public schools learn, it is very, very bad. Where they sit and the teaching and learning processes take place, it is very, very bad. In fact, I went to a school, I won't mention the school. I went to a school in one of the states. And I didn't know when I made a very nasty statement that even the fowl that will be slaughtered for me, if that fowl enters that school environment, if that fowl comes out and you slaughter it, I will no longer eat it. But unfortunately, that school is a boarding school. A boarding school, very, very bad. When I mean very, very bad, I don't know. You will not even imagine that is where learners go to stay. Now, it means that you already have discouraged the learners. So we are supposed to make sure that our learning environments are child-friendly. They are teacher-friendly. They are pedagogical or andragogical friendly. They are attractive. Even they should be community-friendly. If learning environments are not like that, learning will not take place. Now, what of the issue of security? We all know. You cannot sit down. if there is no security, we cannot sit down here. There are schools, there are environments where if they are in classes and they just see anybody that they don't understand, maybe around the school premises, they begin to run away. Remember when we were during the Boko Haram era, where people, you just see anybody in your school compound that maybe you might have never seen him. People start running, jumping out of the classroom that they have seen a Boko Haram member. So these are some of this is that schools are supposed to be properly secured. If they are not secured, nobody will be comfortably seated to learn or to even teach, talk less of learning. Now, what of climatic conditions? Well, what of accessibility? If you look at the UBE program, UBE program Act is saying providing compulsory free basic education. In FCT, we say we'll provide accessible, free and qualitative education. Oh, gosh. Well, unfortunately, you find out that it is not possible for you to provide all these things. It is not possible for you to provide some of these things. But in FCT, we'll try as much as we can to make sure that children are no longer seen on the street. So what we'll do is that where schools are established and children fail due to one reason or the other to go there, we take schools to their doorsteps. What of teaching resources? In our schools, most of the teachers teach without instructional materials. There are certain things that you will not be able to teach them effectively if you don't have instructional, if you don't have teaching material, so that you simplify the teaching learning processes so that children will see the life situations in what you teach. What of the community issues? There are communities that are not friendly. So when teachers even go to the communities to teach, they are not comfortable. So in that case, teachers are not comfortable to teach what they want to teach. And then what of the societal perception? It goes to see what happens in education. In fact, there are people who are teachers, and they find it very, very difficult to introduce themselves in gathering as teachers. I don't know why they do that. I want to tell you that I am one of those lucky people that my first primary school teachers who taught me in primary 1, A, B, C, D, 1, 2, 3, 4 are still alive. And I invite them to my office. Just last week, I invited them. I bring them and we sit down and we discuss. Now, how many people are proud to be teachers? People would say, let me give you one example. I was in my office one day in FCT, and somebody introduced somebody to me that I should employ him. And when the person came, I said, what can you do? The person now said, sir, anything. I said, anything is not anything. Then the person now said, even if it is teaching. He said, even if it is teaching. And I said, in fact, I didn't know when I was provoked, and I told the person, you are stupid. He said, I am a teacher. Not only a teacher, I'm a professional and certified teacher. And you are looking for that job, and you are telling my job even. That is the last thing. That if you cannot get any other job that I can give you teaching, you will manage it. So I told the person, I said, you are stupid. Get out of my office. Now, well, learners perception too. Now, because of this negative attitude about the teaching profession, nobody, even the students, they are not ready at all to sit down and learn. And then, of course, you find out that teachers themselves have not made any positive impact to see how they can influence learners in their school system. This has to do with the pedagogical system that most teachers, even those who are academically sound, don't have that method, the strategy, the pedagogy to make learning take place. Now, we should not forget the issue of welfare issues. Unfortunately, you see, already so many states are owing teachers. We went to one of the schools in the North Central when I was in National Institute of Policy and Strategic Studies. As at the time we went there in 2015, teachers in that state were owed 15 months' salary. That's why I pity the present governor. Now, teachers were owed 15 months' salary as at that time. Now, the implication was that for 1.5 years, there was no teaching and learning in that school. But at the same time, at the end of the academic session, the students in the state still start for WAEC and NECO examination. Now, who is to blame? Now, when students fail, teachers are blamed. Is it not? But when students do well, it is the students that are good. When students perform very well, so, oh, students in social school are very, very good. That school, oh, the students in those schools are very, very good. But it is only when they fail that teachers are remembered. And of course, if you look at the students, when they go to competitions, what happens? When the students do very well, it is the students that are appreciated. The teacher who brought them up will be forgotten. So you find out that sometimes teachers, in these processes, teachers will not be willing to give their best. Now, what of the language issues? Now, why must we teach in English? Why must we teach in English? India does not teach in English, especially except a few private schools. What of said? Oh. Oh, okay. Now, why must we teach in English? Now, I look at what was written there. Now, does it mean that the students, why must we judge students based on their grammar, on English grammar? This same student who wrote this can extend, they can become engineer, they can do anything. These students who have written this. Now, why we have to think about that? That if you go to India or China, they teach in their own language, and they are performing very, very well. Why can't we look at the Nigerian language issue? Now, unfortunately in Nigeria, most of the learned people, most of you who are seated here, your children no longer have mother tongue. Mother tongue is no longer their first language. You speak English, or you speak Pidgin English in your houses. So you now speak other Pidgin English that becomes your first child's mother tongue now. You speak the language of the environment. Then your own language can only be maybe during Christmas or Salah when your children go home. Now, how do you expect them? How do you expect these children to now perform very well? So what we'll be talking about mother language. And then...
Thank you, Dr. Oma.
Yeah?
Thank you very much.
Last sentence.
Well, I think when I'm given another opportunity, I will...
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Wait.
Thank you.
I want to thank the discussant, especially the last point that he has just made on language. Anybody with any knowledge of teaching, and I taught in England, I taught in Nigeria, Latin and mathematics. The local language should first be used to teach children. That's why some of our children speak the most atrocious language, English, because they don't have the background of their own language. So I agree with the speaker that all of us here have to do something about it. We must restore our own indigenous languages into our curriculum. If you live in Lagos, learn Yoruba, speak Yoruba, and then maybe another language. But we mustn't abandon our own languages. So thank you so much for bringing that out.
Thank you. Okay, there's only one point where I want to be indifferent with the prof. Only one area, and that area is the issue of the quota system. Now, in China, in China, in Egypt, in India, and so many other countries, that issue of quota system is there. Now, it is to douse tension in their countries, in respective countries and communities. That is why do we have the 6 regions in Nigeria? It is to douse tension. If the quota system is not there, then there will be a problem. Well, because of what of time, I think I can.
Thank you very much, Dr. Oma. Thank you. We'll now welcome to
Well
the
done.
podium
Well done.
Mrs. Adora Ojo.
Thank you. Thank you, our chairman, our wonderful chairman. I want to stand on the existing protocol so that I'll be fast with whatever I have to do. We are talking about schooling without learning. Actually, it is anticlimax to talk of schooling without learning. The whole purpose of schooling is to learn. So if there's no learning, then the whole exercise is a flux. So children just go out to somewhere, play the whole day, come back, day in, day out for a whole week, a whole month, 6 years in the primary school, nothing to show for it, then we've lost the whole thing. It's a shame, it's a colossal failure for the whole society if we don't address the issue of learning. Actually, it has reached a point of crisis. The educational system has gone comatose. The earlier we address it and bring it out of coma into real life, the better for us all. We are complaining today. You wonder, you get to the hospital, you are talking to a doctor about what you know is wrong with you. He's already writing everything. He's not looking at you. He's not testing anything. He's not checking you out. And you wonder what kind of, then anybody can as well write the writing as. I'm not talking of taking what's it called, the vitals, thank you. I'm not talking of that. I'm talking of already prescribing the medicine. So it's not just, it is a result of the problem we have in our educational system. Now let's address some of these things. We've talked so much, thank you sir, the guest speaker, Prof, for that lecture. So I want to just address a few things because I know there will be room for discussion or for questions. How do we move out of all these situations we've talked about? There is the need for improved enrollment in children's education. If you go out, most of our societies, okay, here in Lagos, go out around 10 in the morning. You'll be shocked at the number of children who don't go to school. They are carrying something, helping somebody by the side. If you ask them, they'll say they are from Benin Republic or they are from the village somewhere. Are they not entitled to education? Will they not grow up and become a pain and a challenge to the society? What kind of a society is ours when we appear to be deaf and blind to the needs of our children? It's painful that our political leaders are just following whatever patterns they want to. And even when the good things are done, when another set comes, they just choose their own pattern and discard whatever is good. One, there's no consistency in political agenda or continuity in educational plans. We've talked a lot about the curricula, what comes in, what goes out. Most of the changes you were talking about, sir, you talked even about beer parlor changes in Nigeria. Yeah. Because of contract. It's a lot of money to change and keep changing. And I wonder whether they call those in the classrooms to the round table when this is done. There was a time literature was virtually killed in this country. Literature is the base for virtually everything in arts. And literature was going down the drains. We were screaming and shouting and nobody did anything about it. So if you're talking about curricular content, then we have to ensure that everything required, let's go and learn from the developed, we call them developed countries. We go there, we see how things work. Many of them start very early to plan ahead. Whatever they sow today becomes the ingredients for the future they are planning for. So we need to increase the enrollment of our children in primary school, at least up to 100%. Now it's quite high with advocacy and all that, but it's not yet 100%. Then we need to do a lot on early childhood education and development. Any country that wants to do something tangible with education must do something about the foundation. If the foundation is destroyed, what can Nigeria do? Thank you for that. What can Nigeria do? Early childhood is not jealousy, me go and just go away so that I'll rest. Just keep singing. I went to one primary school one day, and not primary, nursery, in a public school. The teacher was too shocked to see me enter her classroom. Guess what she was doing? Vegetables. Yes, vegetables. I was shocked to my bones. And the children were there all making a noise. It's not that. What kind of children? Before age 6, age 5, that child has learned basically everything he needs to help him grow in life. So we have to visit the early childhood level in our country. Then we also need to ensure that we've talked a lot about funding, adequate funding, making sure there's quality environment, quality teaching and learning experiences, quality materials. I know we may not have everything in one day, but if we keep working at it, we'll improve from what we were yesterday to what we will be today and what we will yet be tomorrow. Nutrition is very key for children. Thank God the present regime has said at least one meal. But if you notice sometime not too long ago, the social media carried one very ridiculous thing about a woman cutting a loaf of bread, one tiny loaf of bread, into about 4 slices and then putting, was it stew or something, on it and then giving the children. If a child doesn't eat, he can't be relaxed enough to hear whatever, even if you are the best instructor. He needs to eat, he needs to sleep well, he needs to have the basics of life because he's a personality. Those things have to be met. Then when the children come to school, they will be happy, they will be joyful, they will be in the right mood to learn. When we talk about the teachers now, I started with the base because eventually these are the children that will go to the secondary school. If a child doesn't learn in school, the pressure will be on him to cheat in the exams. Because the whole pressure is pass exam, pass exam. You come back, you see some children, they will cry. They won't want to go home because their parents will almost kill them because they didn't do well in the exams. So they will do everything. I witnessed one. The boy did very well. But because he didn't come first, third, he had to doctor his results. So that he did well, whether he came fifth or so. He changed a few things and insisted that a teacher did that. Character. What are we teaching our children? So the children come home, they didn't do well, then they must do well. Not that they must learn. They must come with a certificate to show that they have done well. So every pressure is on them. What's your position? Certification. That's why we have so many graduates who don't have skills. Some of them can't. In fact, the social media has even spoiled everything. Have you seen their language? Small letter, I am, all kinds of things. You read it again and again, you don't even understand what you are. There's no punctuation mark, there's nothing. And they will proceed from there to the secondary school, to the university, and then out of the university. And you're talking of reports? What kind of report should they write? Of course, they will write the same thing that they've been doing for years. Our children don't read anymore. It's a crisis situation. You should be in class, you should be reading now. In fact, sometimes, Mrs. Ojo, we are following you, be reading. We are following you. It's a situation that calls for emergency. What should we do? De-emphasize certification. Thank you. De-emphasize certification. There should be short-term and long-term plan, intervention plan. The teachers, you know, we talked of Kaduna and all that. The problem is real. The approach is not real. For me, that's a personal thing. I think we should have a short-term and long-term goal. If you send away 22,000 teachers, who teaches the children? How did they get to the classroom in the first instance? Who gave them certification in the first instance? Who employed them? Are they accountable? Did you bring them to justify why they employed those people who you now say are not qualified? They must be brought to book. So it's not just the teachers. Who employed them? Who qualified them? If we are not accountable, then the system continues to go rotten. The Lord will help us. Now, we have to do recertification for the teachers. Short-term, long-term. Short-term courses, very short. Pour in money, emphasis, and let them just shape them for now, so that the children will be, you know that that is not real. It's just for the short term. Then the long-term thing will be to readdress the whole educational system so that we start having the kind of quality teachers we need with the right mindset that will teach our children. When you dress and come to class, it's the way the children see you that will make them want to be a teacher or be a doctor. If you come to the classroom with your flip-flop, then the children have nothing to gain from you. It matters a lot. Finally, before I leave, whatever it is, we are all stakeholders in this. If we notice anything wrong, don't keep quiet. There should be communities of stakeholders, parents, neighbors, teachers, campaigning to increase the quality of our educational system so that we will stop going out there. We do it here. Thank you very much. Thank you, ma.
Well done.
Thank you, ma. Thank you. Okay, ma. I didn't know that.
I just want to applaud her for being such a good teacher. A good teacher teaches me. Well done.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Well done. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Ojo, for that very insightful presentation. We invite our next discussant, Ms. Swanta Blessing Bonat, to the podium.
Good afternoon. Grandchild.
Where is the thing?
We can't hear you. We can't hear you.
And I am really grateful for this opportunity I've been given to be here. I want to start by asking, please, how many of us went to public primary schools? Okay. How many went to public secondary schools? What about university? Now, how many of us work in the public sector? Good. You see what I mean? Okay. For me, I feel that by virtue of being here, it means you are good at what you do for you to be here. But then you are in the private sector. And if we're talking about schooling without learning, I I am thinking about public education here. Because even though I know it is the government's responsibility to educate its citizenry, we're still having to rely on the private sector to help educate our children. And I feel they do it better than the public sector. And the percentage of people that have the opportunity to go to private schools is really small compared to those that go to the public sector. And they are the ones that move the economy. Those that do not have the opportunity to go to private schools to really learn what they need to learn in schools are the ones that have the power, let me use that word, to move the economy. I want to talk about these Kaduna State teachers. I am from Kaduna. I came from Kaduna. I believe they don't belong in the classroom for them not to have passed the exam that they were given. But I don't think sacking them is solving the problem.
They're not.
Because they didn't become teachers overnight. It started from somewhere. How did they become teachers to begin with? To get to the point where they were teaching for years. Some of them are approaching retirement, and then they're being sacked. And the same process that occurred for them to have become teachers is still being done now. So unless something is done, it's just a symptom that they're trying to, not really the disease itself. Let me try and paint a picture. I grew up in a southern Kaduna village called Samaru Kataf. All my life, I have lived there. And I believe I am able to stand here because I had the opportunity to go to a private school. If I had gone to the public schools in my village, you would not have heard of me. Because the schools there, you know, we keep saying that we have how many thousand schools. I don't believe we have 21st century schools. And unless the problem is solved at the foundation laying process, we will just keep running in circles and nothing will really be done. Because a child goes to primary 1, they do not have any social skills to begin with. They do not have any preschool experience. Nothing prepares them for elementary school. But then they get to primary 1, they cannot read, they cannot write. Foundation has not been laid, but they are in primary school. They push through primary 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They get to primary 6. They still cannot read nor write. It is not a story. They still cannot read nor write. Now, they manage to get to secondary school. I don't know how, maybe thanks to exam malpractice. They get to secondary school. They keep pushing again. Because you cannot read, you cannot write. Independent learning cannot happen. There is no curiosity enough to want to learn. Nothing is really, motivation is not there. They manage to finish secondary school. Now, some of them pass WAEC with credits and all, but they cannot defend that WAEC. Why? Exam malpractice. Because teachers help them write, right, from the textbooks. And then they are able to write JAM. But because you cannot cheat that much in JAM, they hardly make the scores that will allow them go to the university. So they are hardly picked. Aside the politics and whatever involved in gaining admission in the universities, they do not even have merit to gain admission into public universities. And then we know that the private universities are too expensive, so they're not for people like us. So they end up being sent to where? College of Education. So they go to the College of Education. Now we know that the College of Education is not where you will learn to read and write. It's not where you will be taught how to have comprehension skills, how to do composition and all those things that will aid your learning. That's not where that is taught, because it is with the belief that for you to have gotten to the College of Education, that foundation must have been laid somewhere for you to get there. So nobody really helps you to learn. So they do all they can do to pass each year, each semester, until they are done with College of Education. And guess where they work?
Classroom.
Primary school, where the foundation is laid. So they cannot give what they don't have. So they only repeat what they were given. So it keeps going and it keeps going. So unless we're able to solve that problem of teaching, and what happens at the teacher training level, I do not think we can really accomplish much. Because if we're able to solve the problems with primary education, we would not have plenty issues. Secondary education, we will not have plenty issues when it comes to tertiary education, because most of the issues that we're dealing with now would have been handled in that process. So I feel that is where the number one issue is. Now, I like that we have ideas as to how to solve the problem, but you know, sometimes we come up with ideas and then we just pick them and we run with them without really thinking about implementation and efficiency. The language issue, that why should we teach in English in our schools? It's possible to teach in our mother tongue, but there's a problem with that, because I am on the field. When I started volunteering at the school I was with last year, I got there and I found that the teachers were teaching them in our mother tongue. I'm cut off, that's Tiap. I found that they were teaching, you teach a child English in Tiap, you teach a child math in Tiap, you teach them everything in Tiap. But then when it comes to testing and evaluation and you're asking the child to give back what has been taught, you're not asking them to give that back in Tiap. You're asking them to give it back in English. So there's a problem. How can they translate? How can they, insert themselves in what they have learned to express in English when they have been taught in a different language? And then we know that we are not a country that speaks one language. So unless the curriculum is designed in our different languages, the only solution is to teach in English. For now, until we get to the point where we can comfortably train teachers to teach in the different languages that we have, and then we have different aspects of the curriculum to go in line with that. Because I have a classroom filled with 50 learners, and they are not all from the same ethnic group. So what do I do? If I am supposed to teach them in Hausa, for example, not everybody understands Hausa. Even I that understand Hausa, I'm from the north, I'm from Kaduna. There is a Hausa that someone will speak that I will not understand. Because I know the market Hausa, not the real gong Hausa. You get the point. So there is a disconnect. Policymakers are not actually very clear about what is on ground. They make policies, they come up with good ideas, but then because they are not on the field, they have no idea how that will be implemented to achieve what needs to be achieved. This feeding program, I witnessed it once. I was volunteering in that school for 10 months, a public school, but it only happened once in Kaduna State. And even when it happened, only primary 1 to primary 3 were fed. The others stood and they were looking. Okay, am I going to get food? Will I not get food? I asked, what happened? They said that it's 3 different people that are handling it. One is handling preschool, one is handling primary 1 to 3, the other is handling 4 to 6. So it's not even, and it's not enough to keep children in school. Yes, you can lure them with that, but it's not enough to keep them in school. Fix the schools. We don't have 21st century classrooms, as far as I'm concerned, in a public school. When I started volunteering at that school, the floors were bad, everything was bad. And then we found a way to connect the school to the school water, to the state water board. And then we painted the class and we tiled it. Now, when I started, there was a fluctuation. The learners in the class were supposed to be 42, but we're having 25, 24. Today there will be 24, tomorrow there will be 25. But I tell you, when that classroom was painted and tiled, and some of them got to see crayons for the first time in their lives last year. For the very first time in their lives last year. Crayon. For the first time. We didn't need to invite them to come to school. We were now looking for space to have them. Because they were coming regularly, because they saw, even poor people know good things. When we fix the schools, and especially it has to be in the rural areas, because not many of us have the opportunity to come to the city. And a majority of the Nigerian population is still in the rural areas and the disadvantaged areas. So once we can fix education there and we fix our classrooms to the standard, you know, build the classrooms with electricity, water. You know, we're teaching them to be part of the changing, evolving world, right? But then we're teaching them that it's okay, if you want to pee, just go to the bush. If you want to poo, go to the bush. If you want to drink water in the school, please go to the neighbor, go and beg them for water. Because our schools do not have that provision. But we expect that if they go, they should fit in wherever they find themselves. So as it is, we're already limiting them. They cannot dream beyond. And I feel that an education that does not present the individual with an option, with many options, you know, to choose where to fit into the ladder of nation building, options to think outside the box, outside the realities that life presents to them or her, is not true education. I am able to leave my job in Abuja and resign and come back home because I got an education that opened my eyes to the options that I had. That I could actually do this instead of this, that I can do this instead of that, that I can be a solution to a problem. So unless our education does that, we have a long way to go. You know, I find myself not thinking about the many problems that are there because, well, I don't want to have a heart attack. And I just believe in doing what I can do from where I am. And then in doing that, I'll invite others to see that there's a need to also take action, and then they do what they can do. I believe it's a collective responsibility. I'm not sure many of you know what happens in the public school next to you. Do you know?
They don't.
You might have an idea, but if you don't go and see it, you will not know. I had an idea before I left Abuja. I said, I'm going to go, I'll teach these children literacy. I believe that once they can read and write, they can learn on their own. At least their learning problems will be a little less if they...
Reduced.
And then I packed my bags and I went back home. And then I invited them for rural English literacy, free English classes. I had children aged 3 to 22. From nursery to SS2, none of them could read well. And those of them that could manage to say the few words, they can't even comprehend what they are reading. So I ended up not teaching with the curriculum that I took home. I ended up teaching them ABCD. All of them. So the problem is deeper than we think it is. And until each one of us sees it as a collective responsibility, and then you take action in whichever way you can, and then invite others to, we'll still be talking about this 10 years later. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I really want to say to you, thank you for coming here. It's very good to have a grandchild on the panel. Well, I have good news for you, and that is, let me find the correct page. I'm looking for your page. Yeah. Which is mine. I want the good news. That's you. Yes, where is Isaiah? It's another place. No wonder. Yes. All right. Ishaya Amaza and Koforola Bangboshe, excellent MCs. We are great friends. They have been consulting me each time. So they're very good, very good. So we're going to go on to questions and answers now. And I must say that we've really had very wonderful speakers. But before I go into that, I just want to react to somebody teaching a local language and asking questions in English. That's bizarre. What? The Inspectorate of the Ministry of Education, what are they doing? The Inspectorate of the Ministries now, I'm sorry to say, they're not doing their jobs. Some of them don't even go near the schools. And if they go, the principals meet them at the gate Envelopes are exchanged, and that's it. So the inspectorate has to be strengthened in our ministries of education. Then, to support my contention that you have to teach children in their language first, I went to primary school in Abeokuta, and I was taught Yoruba in Yoruba. We had also English lessons, but that's English lesson. But all other subjects were taught in Yoruba. It was when I got to Methodist Girls High School, Lagos, that I was taught in English. Is there any MAGS here? No. Right. Now, so don't let us run away from it. Wole Soyinka, Chinua Achebe, the exponents of the English language, better than the English themselves, they speak fluent Yoruba with proverbs. They give lectures in their languages. It's because they had a good sounding of their own Yoruba or Igbo language. That's why they are exponents of the English language. So please remember that. So we're going to go on to questions and answers. Please, I beg of you. It's an interactive session. We've tried to involve you as we went along. So we're going to ask you to please give us your own view through questions or answers. If you want a particular discussant to answer your question, please so indicate. But I beg of you, no preamble. Go to your question. Ask your question. No preamble. Give your statement. 1 minute each. So, where are you going to start? You see, we are great friends. Where? You know, I must apologize. I don't like people imposing on me because I don't impose on people. But I want you to please excuse what is going to happen in a minute. I hear the press, the fourth estate, they want a picture of the panelists. So please give us a minute or two to do that. Now please don't waste any time. Who are they and where are they? Well, that's all right, don't worry. Oh, yeah. No, we can't stand there, you see. Don't order me around. I will order you. I stand where I want to stand. So that, yes. Okay. Yes. Enough. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam
Yes. Thank you. So we'll have one MC here. Where is
I'm here.
the other MC here, so that when people put their hands up, they will see them quickly and call them. Where will they speak? Is there provision there? You take the microphone. Oh, dear me, that's a long distance. All right. Very well. I'm going to sit down and enjoy this. So you pick the speakers. No preamble. Statement. Question. Thank you. Who is going to ask? Please start.
May I speak?
Oh, haven't you found somebody?
Thank you very much.
Please say your name so we know who you are.
Obafemi Olopade.
Baba.
You'll please grant me just 1 minute extra. I'm not going to ask a question. I'm just going to make some observations.
+1 +1.
Yes. I grew up in a very small city called Port Harcourt. And then we had what they call traveling teachers and education officers. And they had teachers training schools then, where teachers were trained. The first 3 years, they obtained a certificate called lower elementary teachers. 3 years, they go into practice. 3 years after, they spend another 3 years as high elementary teachers. And then they go and teach. And the lucky ones do exams, London matriculation, Cambridge exams, as external students. After that, they start teaching in secondary schools. Most of the early teachers in the 40s were lower elementary teachers. They were teaching history, geography, but not English. We had English teachers. And the traveling teachers then were English teachers or missionaries. Late Bishop Vining, of blessed memory, was a traveling teacher before he became a reverend in Port Harcourt. Then he became a bishop. Now, would we go back to that system? I went through that system, and I think I'm better off for it than what I see today. You accuse parents of spending money teaching their children at home because they want to offer them the best of education. And the chairperson said, it is important that we learn from our mother tongue or our mother language, rather than starting with the English. I've been to China umpteen number of times, and I know in China they still speak in Chinese. They start their lessons from 8 o'clock in the morning till 10 p.m. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. I think I can speak with this. I salute you. I didn't know you were in the audience. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. You know, I spoke before about inspectorate. When I was teaching in England, Latin and Maths, I had inspectors come to sit in the classroom to see how the teacher was performing. And those who know Dr. Chris Kolade, when I was teaching at Yejide Girls Grammar School between 1958 and 1960, he was in the Ministry of Education. So they asked him to come and watch me teach Latin at Yejide Girls Grammar School. It's a story that he likes to repeat, and also that I like to repeat. You need teachers to be, they must be good. And before you can make sure a teacher is good, go and see what she's doing in the classroom, whether she's dealing with vegetables or she's teaching the children. Thank you.
Thank you.
MC, carry on.
Yes.
Madam Chairperson.
Yes.
I'm Dr. Larry Tarikoka. Oh. I'm an architect. In my next life, I'll be a lawyer.
Good for you. Good for you.
I hope you'll all be around in my next life. Anyway, just a few points. Primarily on the position paper by the guest speaker. There are some points you've made which I think we should elaborate on. One of them is the fact that I don't believe you need to go to school to learn. Einstein did not go to school, to formal school. He was taught at home. Secondly, in this age of technology, we shouldn't fight the internet. As a matter of fact, I think we should use it to our advantage. If the schools don't have teachers, then I'm sorry to say, let them be irrelevant. Let them be taught by internet. Okay. The next point will be, there's no electricity.
No electricity.
No electricity. Okay. Why don't we use solar, particularly in the rural areas? Tesla has built batteries which you can put onto the buildings and they provide you enough electricity to power internet and also the screen. Thirdly, in some countries in the world, the teachers are the most important people.
Yes.
I'll give you an example.
Sure.
I'll give you an example. Japan is one. Germany is another. Finland is another. Sweden. The countries we know are advanced. We call them advanced. They're not advanced because they're talking. They're advanced because they have serious people who are governing those countries. Fifthly, one of the biggest problems we have is that we don't have serious people governing this country. I would hazard a guess that 90% of all our members of the National Assembly don't have a verifiable certificate. So how would you expect such people to be interested in education? Education is not in their interest because it will expose them. And my last point, because I'm taking up too much time, is that when teachers are respected, as they are in a country like Germany, and I want to give you a quote, Mrs. Angela Merkel was talking to the professionals, engineers, architects like myself, and various other professionals. They were asking for more money. And you know what the lady said? She said, how can I pay you more money than the people who taught you? I rest my case. Thank you.
The ones that are not so quick, that are not so fast, even after 30 minutes, even after exhausting the whole 45 minutes, they cannot pick up anything. And you have to go over to the next subject because you have a number of subjects that you must complete in a day. Personally, it got me worried. And when you come closer to these ones that are not so fast, you find out that these are the ones that actually, they have the potentials. If you give them time, if you put time in them, you find out that they have the potential to actually grab that, and they are highly intelligent. It's just that for one or two reasons, maybe because of what they had picked up at home before coming, they're not really able to put things in perspective. But somehow, when you are able to, and I think it will take a more experienced and understanding teacher to understand that, and that teacher needs much more time, and it might not be equitable to place such a student with the first one. So I was thinking, is there a way, is there a more efficient system to handle these situations so that even as the first ones are schooling and learning, the ones that are not so fast to pick up things in school are also able to as well school and learn? Is a statement as well as a question. Thank you very much. Sorry, and I would really like if Mrs. Ojo could address this because...
Yes, it's her line.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Elelonu Okoro, Mrs. I will try very hard to put across what I want to say, and I'm focusing on quota system. With all humility, 3/4 of my life, I got involved in quota. I taught in Queen's College, 10 years of my life, Federal Ministry of Education, that's scholarships, secondary school section, those two places, it's about quota, you know. Then I went to JAMB, where I spent 25 years. Quota again. I get very emotional talking about quota. The point I want to make is that you can't continue with quota when you are talking about selection in education in Nigeria. It can't be indefinite. You have mentioned the problems at the lower level of education. If those problems are fixed, if you have good teachers, good infrastructure, good facilities, you will produce students that can measure up anywhere. There will be no need for quota anymore. Even when I was in JAMB, 8 years of my work in JAMB, I was a director of admissions. We got to a stage where we could not find applicants. If you don't have somebody applying, how will you admit? Then we put those ones under the IJMB program, Interim Joint Matriculation Board program, where they will now go and, polish their O-levels. Where did those people end up? Teaching and whatever. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation, sir, but I think you had, or you have, the answer. Because when you said, if you stop quota, there'll be tension. Depends on which part of the divide you are. I used to have sleepless nights. I will tell my husband, I said, do you know there's somebody with 275 couldn't go in for medicine, another person with 220 going in for medicine. And this poor candidate does not even know why he or she didn't get admission. Sometimes I will just burst into tears because I'm a mother. The injustice in it. So the point I'm making is the whole thing is political. And we had sat down, discussed this thing over and over again. Even in JAMB, there was a time the discretionary lists were being adopted when Mr. Ngulu said, look, this is too much. Anybody who didn't get in because of quota and scored well, we used to list all of them and send them to the universities to be considered and admitted. But somewhere down the line, that system was abused. So the point I'm making is, we cannot continue to do quota. No, it doesn't work. My young lady over there also touched on it. You have observed the decadence or the rot at the lower echelons of education. That is where this country has to look into, address all those issues and make sure that children from all those areas come up. With all humility, there are 3 students of mine I taught in Queen's College in Form 3. They are judges today. Because they were exposed to very good, high standard of education under Mrs. Coker at Queen's College. So even when you say quota, some people will have the impression that nothing good can come out from those areas where you're operating this affirmative action, giving them admission when they have very low scores. No. So, please, I think I've made my point. Thank you.
Hello. Right. Good evening, everybody. Right. When I looked at schooling without learning, I'm Omolara Utujo. I'm a child care practitioner in the sense that we care for children in the community, and it's a community-based program. But my career, first of all, was not in that area. I developed interest later. I graduated as a mathematician, then statistics, then computer programming. And then I came back to, and people were asking me, why are you interested in children? Yes. When I got to that area, Mushi area, I noticed that government need to concentrate on the foundation properly, because it's only when we build the foundation that we can get the best nation. And because of this, UNICEF, Benevolia Foundation of the Netherlands, Save the Children, they all I was opportune to use their support to work on these people. And the teachers bringing up these children were not skilled enough to do that. And that was my point before they sponsored it. So I was asked to go and teach them so that they can do it properly. And because I was using local materials, most local materials as within the environment, mushi, hardboard, session, stones, everything. That was what Ashoka Innovators for the Public in USA recognized and gave me a fellowship because I was using it to teach them. And I encourage all the jealousy teachers to use them, rather than government to drive them away and say they are not doing it properly. But we can give them what they would use within their environment to still achieve the same product. So this was very, very encouraging. And now, some of these teachers that they would have killed their enthusiasm had grown. Most of them are now graduates because now they open their eyes that it's true, I must improve on what I'm doing. And they were taking JAM, most of them are graduates now. But you are looking at schooling without learning in the public. What about private schools? There are so many schooling without learning in the private schools because they are driven by parents. If you don't, I paid for this. It's my money. So you go this way. If you don't go this way, I withdraw my children. And they are private schools. And they depend on these children and their school fees. So they can be there. And some of them, we even help them to write and pass because they don't want the parents to withdraw them. So what are we doing? Again, government. In the process of my dealing with slum and this area, we were, UNICEF and Benevanlia, we developed curriculum for 0 to 5 years, for developing 0 to 5 years old. But you know, this curriculum, we want to go to the community. It's in English. And getting them to translate into local languages so that we can communicate what is in the... So that we can communicate what is in the curriculum with the community parents. That has been very difficult up to now. So I think the government, we can advise the government to stop politicizing education and let parents, community themselves, work it out. And they can help us because most of the policies is when they want to review it, they want their names to show that they did something, they review. Without, I know, effectively finding out how effective the previous ones are and what are the shortcomings so that they can improve on it. You know, we have a lot to do and we are begging government to do a lot on the foundation. Until we build the foundation properly, we cannot get the best nation.
We should have only about 2 more questions so that the panelists can respond. So are there any more or where is Is she going after somebody? Oh yeah, there's somebody there. Yes, okay.
Good evening, all. Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, all.
Yes, good
my name is Endurance Agbo. My question has to do with the legal profession, and is directed at the chairperson, ma'am. Recently, there's been a debate on the necessity of the 2-year pupillage that is being proposed by the Legal Profession Reform Bill. And many people have canvassed various, various thoughts on this. And my question to you, Ma, is this. As someone who has been involved in the legal profession for about 5 years now, do you think...
About how many years?
I'm sorry. Oh, sorry, Ma. I am so sorry. For about 5 decades now.
Decades, oh.
5 decades, please.
5.5 decades.
5.5 decades.
I stand to be corrected, Ma. As someone who has been involved in the legal profession for about 5.5 decades now, do you think that this 2-year pupillage is important? And if it is important, do you think that dedicating 8 years towards studying in the university, at the law school, and then the 2-year pupillage is necessary to more or less improve the legal, standard of legal education we are currently receiving? Thank you very much.
Are you a lawyer? Yes. Are you a lawyer?
Yes, I am.
Oh, he's my learned son or grandson. All right. So I will happily. Did you have a period of pupillage? Did you have a period of pupillage yourself?
I am currently undergoing my National Youth Service, so that could pass as pupillage for now.
Yes. Excuse me. I know that young lawyers don't like the idea of pupillage, but the older members of the profession, excuse me, because of their experience, they know that it is useful to have pupillage. So that, you see, the theories that you learned in the university and law school, they are theories. But now to face practical practice in the law courts, it is dangerous for any lawyer to step out of law school and get himself involved in a case in the High Court without any direction or assistance. It is going to be a calamitous mistake. And you don't want to start your career presenting yourself in such a way that your court appearance is a disaster. So you need to have a period of pupillage. I want you to know that 2 years is a long time, no doubt. But you know, in America, you have to have a degree first, 4 years or so, before you can even read law. Another 4 years, before you can now go to the bar. So it's a tedious path, but it's a very successful one. And you who are starting, try and get pupillage in a reputable law chambers so that you learn how to tackle cases in court. I understand it takes a long time, but from 56 years at the bar, I know it's the best thing. I was in pupillage with Chief Rotimi Williams, SAN, and he rests in peace. I was in pupillage with my brother-in-law, Chief Justice Odesonya. So I know the advantages that I learned. I mean, I used to watch them, and they said to myself, I'm going to grow up in this profession to cross-examine, like Justice Odesonya used to cross-examine, to lead evidence like Chief Rotimi Williams. So what we can do, excuse me, is that pupillage should also attract remuneration. So because some people have complained to me that when parents have spent so much money, you know, in law school, university, then to say go to pupillage without payment. So I think I would recommend between 1 and 2 years. But I think that there should be some kind of remuneration that will not make the young lawyer feel that he was just working for nothing. But really, he's not working for nothing. He's working to prepare himself for practice. I didn't get your name. Do you want me to say more? Is that enough? You didn't answer. No, his name is Agbo. Agbo, Mr. Agbo, my learned son Agbo. Is that all right? Has he left the hall?
No, I'm here, right here.
You have, I want to hear you.
I am satisfied for now.
What did you say? Thank you.
Madam Chairman, my name is Funke Adekoya. I am with Aelex. From what I have heard this evening, I am very frightened. I am frightened because the semi-illiterate 16, 17, 18-year-olds who are leaving secondary school in 30 years' time will be the directors, the permanent secretaries, the ministers, the governors who will be directing state policy and will impact the lives of the next generation. And I have two proposals that anyone who is able to carry it forward may want to consider. The first one is that scholarships should be given at federal and state levels to the top 10% graduating out of secondary schools to focus on the STEM subjects. And perhaps the result of that is that the crème de la crème will be able to change the focus of schooling and direct Nigeria in the type of education and the way we need to go to catch up with the first world. My second proposal to those who can carry it forward is also that those who then graduate at the top of the class, first class, second class, upper, in those STEM subjects should be given automatic employment as teachers at an enhanced salary grade, because incentive is always in the pocket. If it is better financially for a first-class graduate to be a teacher teaching mathematics or teaching physics than to go into industry, then that is where they will go. And bond them for that period. And that will enhance the quality of teaching, which will impact upon the quality of learning. Those are my two proposals.
Thank you very much indeed. My learned friend, just 1 minute. There's a gentleman that after that I will call you. Please. You should stay near there.
Thank you very much.
Why are you not there?
I went through the other side. We just need to wrap it up.
6.
Thank you very much. I would not want to use distinguished because we have been warned. Very eminent speakers and panelists. I think this has been a very well put together event, and I'm very happy that I came.
Good.
Now, I think we have laid so much emphasis on what institutions of government could do to education. And I don't think that is the direction we should be going. We should challenge ourselves here, challenge our collective, should I say, philanthropy and humanitarianism. We like good things, but it doesn't appear as if we are willing to put our monies there. I don't know how many Ivy League institutions in this world depend on government funding. Most of the institutions depend on either the alma mater Or rich people, where are wealthy people? Where are they? And I see most of us here, we enjoy the good things in the township, Lagos. I don't know how many of us have gone to our rural schools and visited and seen for themselves what is there. And to see that a very little amount of money that you can remove yourself and put in that institution can make a whole world of difference. So let us, all of us now challenge ourselves. Let's go to these schools. Let's leave this government alone. It will never change. Politics will continue to be politics. Politicians will be politicians. All these things they do, window dressing, they go and paint schools for people to say, and then they say they have built schools, they've done that. Let us take it into our own hands. Most of us here, we can afford to send our children to the best schools. I've seen that because I've done that. I wasn't sent, I was in Abadina Primary School. And I used to be very envious of those of my friends who were in international school, in staff school. But now I can do that for my children. But let us not end there. Let us go to the villages and see what we can do to the people, and go to our alma maters and see what monies we could put there. And when we put our money there, we'll be interested to see that they are well deployed and things are going better. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Very good point. Very good point. Chief Additional SAN.
Thank you very much, the presiding chairman. I want to, please pardon me or permit me to thank the organizers of this program, Aelex. It's an eye-opener. Mrs. Funke Adeko has said she was frightened. I join her to say I am also frightened. What has come up from this discussion is very frightening. Words like education is in comatose. Words like calamity have been used. And I use the word destruction. The Bible says that my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Knowledge is very fundamental to whatever anybody will become in life. And for God's sake, if anybody says education is expensive, let him try ignorance.
Ignorance.
Education must be funded. And that is the bottom, that is the foundational issue. And I don't think individuals can do it. Some of us are making little humble contributions in our villages. I had the privilege of being appointed the Pro-Chancellor recently. I went on an assessment tour of the university, and I compared with the university I attended in 70 to 80. They are poles apart. What can an individual do in that situation? Now, my questions are, and I don't know we answer it among the discussants or the keynote speaker. There is no gainsaying the fact that education is not adequately funded in this country. The budget that has just been released is about 8 trillion. The 10% of 8 trillion, I don't know how much is that, 800 billion. What I read about the vote for education was 61 billion. What percentage is that to 8 trillion naira? What percentage? So my questions are this. What methodology, what approach, what strategy can we use to impress it on the government to do the needful, to vote adequate money for education? There is nothing you can do to a teacher whose salary is not paid. You want to stop her, particularly if it's a woman, you want to stop her from selling some little biscuits and bread to be able to train her own children, or a man from doing 2 or 3 part-time teachings simultaneously. So, what can we do to get the government to appreciate that education is an issue that must be confronted? Although we all know that in Nigeria, that we acknowledge our problems, We talk about them, but we technically avoid them, thinking that they will solve themselves. This is my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to go through the speakers so that they can answer some of the questions. I'll start with the keynote speaker.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Yes. Briefly.
I took notes. First, Follow-up just said what I wanted to see.
Good.
Our project, our project to restore yesterday. And when you look at that report, you know, all what you said was there in the 80s. 1971, when I graduated, those of us who went to teach, they were given special privileges.
Doesn't he have it?
To teach.
Doesn't he have this?
They were incentivized. In fact, almost as soon, and I'm happy that Dr. Ayade John is here, even before we left school, I said Jack Robinson, they already had cars from loan done by government. They had, for science, you have to take one step higher than those who did humanities. It was there. But somehow, I don't know what happened. When this oil money came, it means it just all went mad. It's there. All these things, all what you said about STEM, about scholarships. I mean, when we were in the university, it was prestigious, more prestigious, to take a state scholarship. You know why? Because you do examinations. That was what happened. Now, I will leave the other things, the issue of quota system. We can't survive with quota system. I've done a lot of studies on this. Quota system must go. And I will tell you, when I was Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, 2 young ladies were together from primary school. They were okay. They got to Queen's College. From Queen's College, we gave admission to one who is lesser gifted. Not only in school, even the school SAR results showed it. Even JAM results showed it. But we couldn't give her admission based on merit. So we gave, and they both live in Surulere. Of course, thank God they are all medical practitioners today. But we have to find, my matter has to be taken as far as the person we call the visitor, who is the president at that time, to give some special dispensation to this. The young girl who was not going to be given them, there was no way she was going to be nationalistic. We are building a nation. This quota system destroyed nationhood. We need to all work together to make sure that quota system is totally thrown out of the books. The issue of private sector, I agree with you. There are also challenges in private sector, but you know why? Because there are no inspectorates, as Madam Chair said. No inspectors anymore. She even said that sometimes inspectors are met and they go. I have 1 more minute. I do agree. We are all frightened, but we can do something about it. I'm frightened because I think we have to just continue this advocacy. Maybe an advocacy group to continue with this idea. Let Nigeria be free. There are certain things we do in Nigeria that puts us in chain. One of them is quota system. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Not more than 5 minutes.
Oh, I will do sharp. Now, first of all, let me talk about one of the basic problems we have with our educational system is the issue of manpower development. I want to tell you that in so many places or in so many states, especially in the past, there were people who joined the teaching service program and served for 35 years and left service without attending one workshop. One workshop. Now, that means there was no room for them to improve themselves. There was nothing. the knowledge they acquired when they were either grade 2 or NC holders was that same thing that they kept on transferring. When we were, during my master's day, a lecturer unfortunately brought a lecture note that he was using. Unfortunately unknown to him that the date of that lecture note, it was a typed listen. The date, it was 1960-something. When we saw it, we laughed at him. In fact, he got to a point where he had to ask us why we were laughing. And we told him we just remembered what happened yesterday. That's why we were laughing. So, so manpower development cannot be compromised at all. So that has to be given attention seriously. And in the Federal Capital Territory, we do that. On a daily basis, we make sure that our teachers are properly trained. But, of course, you know the numerical strength of teachers. How many can you train in a year? Now, one solution to our basic problem is the issue of partnership, just as one of my colleagues has said, whether we like it or not. No matter even Nigerian budget is put in education, it will not be able to solve educational problems. So what we need is partnership. In the Federal Capital Territory, I, as the SWEP chairman of FCT, I have embarked on mobilization campaign that we want people to come and adopt our school. They didn't come and partner with us. And I want to tell you here that that is giving us a lot of result, a lot of impact. Just yesterday, a school that was built by women organization in FCT donated a block of 4 classrooms. We furnished it. We mobilized an NGO from China. They constructed a block of a school with 13 classrooms. In fact, there are so many of them that are coming up because of the campaign I have embarked upon in FCT. Now, this partnership does not mean that you need to have plenty money. Let me tell you, what I tell residents of FCT is that if you go to the market and buy something, that change that is left, go and buy 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 exercise books. Look, if you take 10 exercise books, just jump into any class, give it to children from poor families. I want to tell you that those children will be forced to come to school every day. Every day. That will motivate them. What of even children that don't have uniform? How much does it cost you to buy school uniform? Just about 1,000. You'll be able to produce school uniform to... Oh, God. Okay, now the issue, I don't want to, sorry, I don't want to controvert what Prof and other people have said, but the issue of quota system goes beyond that. Let me tell you sincerely, why is it that in your state, when a governor is picked from somewhere, the deputy governor is picked from somewhere? Why? Why is it that if the president comes from somewhere, it is said the vice president should come from somewhere? Now, I told you when I was telling you that these things are to douse political tension. Democracy, that is one of the challenges of democracy. It does not necessarily end with the best person. In it,
Okay. You can always approach him after the event. I want us to end at 6 p.m. We have only 15 minutes. So
thank you very much.
5 minutes.
Thank you, man.
5 minutes.
Thank you very much.
Or less.
Thank you, Ma, for the comment that the foundation is very key. And I would like us to do much more with the children of our generation, of this generation, so that we have the future that we'll be envious about. Thank you. I didn't get your name, my dear. How do we achieve learning in a class that has diversity? That's the summary. The teacher, you see, that's why it's dangerous to get low-minded people into the classroom.
because teaching is very creative. It should be creative, innovative, and for very highly intelligent people. Any situation you meet in a class is something you can work with. So if you are not creative, it will be difficult. There's no class. Even here, we are all gifted differently. So there's no class. In fact, you're talking of 35. I was surprised. Is that a large class? You've not seen 100? Oh, we have 100. We have 100, we have 80, we have over 100. So some classes are much more, 120. And you have to, so imagine when we talk of funding, a class that is that jam-packed, no windows or very few windows, no lights, and then the children are stuffy, they are sweaty, the whole place is choky, you know, especially with the boys. When they become teenagers, they sweat a lot. Now, what do you do as a teacher? Devise, okay, let me tell you what I was doing with the English language. I taught the children, I put them in groups. That time they were just 50. I put them in groups of 5s, 10 groups. And I taught, because it was difficult to teach, to mark their essays weekly. When we were young, you know, we were just like 10, 15, 20 in class. But 50 every week or 2 times in a month, it was difficult to mark and keep pace with that. So I had to teach them how we mark school set English. It took some time. I put them in groups, and then we started practicing in class. The group of 5s, you mark everybody, and then we did practical work. In about 3 months, all those children were writing super essays. So you have to create. I taught another set that way. They said, Mrs. Sojo, this girl's English is wrong. My spelling is correct, her own is wrong. So everything depends on the class, the teacher. You devise the method that you use to reach your children best. Thank you very much.
Well done.
Thank you.
Sorry, I'm also going to talk about what you said. Ideally, a classroom is not supposed to be larger than 25, 30.
Yeah.
And even with that, they're supposed to have a class teacher and a class assistant so that you would fix eyes on all the learners and know how to help them individually, even as they perform in a group. But because we don't have that, NYSC has been helping, but I have a problem with that. It has been helping, but not, it is a, It has been helping, but long term, it is not really helping. Because you just send anybody to the classroom. I know it is believed that if learning really occurred, you should be able to transfer, you should be able to teach. But then we know that teaching is a call. It is first a call, then an art, and then a skill. So it's not everybody that is equipped to teach, that should teach. You get. And I feel that TRCN has not been doing its job well. I am a registered teacher, but I'm not licensed. I applied for my license since 2015. Each time I go, they tell me it's not ready. Each time I go, they tell me it's not ready. But I teach. You get. And so there are many people that are teaching that are not supposed to be in the classroom. I feel that if TRCN does its job as it is supposed to, why can't we have induction for teachers? Why can't teaching be seen as medicine, as law? You know, you have to go through an induction course. You have to get your certificate first and your license before you are even allowed to enter the classroom. Once we are able to do that, whether we like it or not, many people would want to teach because, well, we are the least paid, but it will. People still keep asking me why I am teaching. You know, they believe that my supervisor, undergrad, told me I was wasting my potential because I was teaching in a primary school. He said he knows what I am capable of. I should be lecturing. And I'm like, can't I choose to be a primary school teacher? Shouldn't we have the best teaching at that level? Yes. Okay. So the more importance we place on the teaching profession, the more people we will get, and the more our classrooms will have enough manpower to handle them and, you know, do what needs to be done. And what he said about us seeing it as a collective responsibility, like what I said, it is a collective responsibility unless each one of us sees it as, I have a role to play, because once we fix education in this country, many things will be solved. And the quality of the teachers determine the quality of education, we know that. But once each one of us sees that I have a role, an active role to play in how education is done in this country, many problems will not be solved. And it doesn't take much to do that. With the renovation we're able to do in the public school I was at, we got barely 350,000, but we're able to get pipe-borne water, we're able to tile the classroom, we're able to paint it, we're able to get learning materials for over 40 pupils. And it helped. It helps them to learn better, it helps to improve how they viewed learning, their attitude towards learning and towards schooling and all. So we all have a role to play. And you mustn't be directly there to play that role. There are many things you can do. You can, innovative collaborations. It's all we need to. Thank you.
Well done. Now, you know, as chairman, the next thing is vote of thanks. But by the authority bestowed upon me as chairman, I have amended the program to make a presentation to Funke Adekoya, SAN. Funke Adekoya, please come up. I know that you have my books in your library, but I've brought you autographed copies of my 2 books. Here's one. And then my book of lectures, there's another one. Shema, thank you, man. God bless you, man. Well done, well done. And copies of my remarks. Thank you. Thank you, man. That was special. Thank you so much. You've been a wonderful audience, and we really enjoyed it. I think we've learned from one another. So now we're going to go into vote of thanks. And again, I wish Aelex the very, very best. And I hope that learned something from these discussions. Thank you so much. Vote of thanks.
Thank you very much, ma. Before the vote of thanks, though, we just want to show a bit of appreciation to our speakers for coming out today to speak to us. So we have a few plaques to award to the speakers. We'll start with our eminent chair lady, Chief Sholanke. Please give her a round of applause for a wonderful job done.
Very, very nice.
Thank you very much, ma, for your contributions. Thank you. We appreciate you. Thank you, ma.
Thank you. Please put it back and take it away. It's heavy. You follow me.
And then we'll just like to also present a plaque to Professor Oyewusi Ibidakwa Obi for his wonderful keynote address.
Next, we would like to appreciate Mrs. Adora Ojo for her presentation. We'd also like to appreciate Dr. Adamu Noma for his time and for his presentation as well. And then lastly, we would like to appreciate Mrs. Swanta Blessing Bonat, for the time she took to come here and for her presentation as well.
Thank you all very much, and a very big round of applause to all of you for staying this late to listen to our lecture. We thank our distinguished guests, our chair lady, our guest speaker, and discussants. As we do every year, we will have a copy of the presentations available on our website, www.aelex.com. Please do log in to see some of the topics that have been discussed today. Once again, we're pleased that you made out time to join us, and we thank you for attending the 12th Aelex annual lecture. We'll have the vote of thanks to be taken by our partner, Mr. Soji Augbade. Thank you all very much for taking out this time. We appreciate you. Thank you.
With your kind permission, Madam Chairman, I'm going to start from here. It would be no shock to anyone if we had this panel and the other side was empty. It would be a complete disaster. It won't be a shock, it will be a disaster. And I must explain to you why we truly care more about people on this side than any other thing when we're planning an Aelex lecture. The topic, and of course, the panel has to appeal to you for you to show up here. And therefore, for taking the time out to be here, to listen to these wonderful faculty that we have managed to put together, I would like to say thank you very much to everyone in the audience. And now, to our chair lady. It is not often that you can beat those who are made abroad. Some people come completely knocked down from abroad. CKD. Some people are totally and completely made. I think Chief Mrs. Sholanke came back from the UK completely made for two good reasons. You became a lawyer and you did some teaching. So you are made for this subject. And that's why you had to wait for 5 years. But I must tell you that the way you have conducted affairs today was pragmatic, authoritative. I didn't say authoritarian. Authoritative. And it is the way that a subject like this ought to be handled if you know anything about it yourself. In selecting a keynote speaker for a subject like education, you're actually spoiled for choice. Any one of our panelists could have taken the keynote. But we're looking for a man or woman who has been in class. He also went to school, one of those colleges around here. No. He also went to school. But after going to school, he went back to school to become a teacher. And he is a veteran teacher. He has never left the classroom since he left school. And that's unique. Because in a country where people have persuasions that take them away from their first love, it is difficult to find people who stay the course. Professor
Oyewusi Ibidapo Obe. I will never be able to miss your name or mispronounce it. He comes from a small village near my town, a place called Ilesha. And I come from Ileife. And he compounded his own problem by taking my own sister for a wife. So when his name came up, I said, well, if everybody else can refuse, he cannot possibly refuse. And he did not. And he has brought with him today a wealth of knowledge, practical knowledge, academic knowledge, and esoteric knowledge to this subject. He excited the panel, and they gave in response to him. Thank you very much, and may your shadow never grow less. I have been hearing of Mrs. Coca, Mrs. this, Mrs. that, Mr. this, and Mr. that. I have now met the Mrs. Ojo today. And it is indeed a pleasure to listen to you. You look actually like a teacher. Am I wrong? And so, when you are like that, you are credible. People believe you. You're talking about something you know, you are in touch with. And the experience that you have put on the table today is a treasure for Nigeria to use. Because these are people who are still grinding at the mill, who want things to get better, and they're still willing to play a role in it. Thank you very much. As to my young friend, her granddaughter, my own daughter, as to what you have been able to put out today, you taught us first one thing. Do not underrate my youth. That is biblical. Do not underrate my youth. You have now told us what many people are not in possession of, what is going on at the very bottom of the ladder. And I cannot thank you enough for the wealth that you have brought to this lecture. Thank you very much. Even if they say that you came here to advocate they cannot deny, sir, that you have very plausible reasons for doing so. But that's not the only thing you have done. You have educated us on how the administration of education in Nigeria is working and not working. And that is somewhere we must look for the solutions to schooling without learning. Thank you very much for your participation. And I hope that Nigeria has more dedicated people like you. You have said one thing that you're currently doing, which I think enough is not being done. That thing about reaching out to society and drawing people in to see what they are honestly, truly ignorant of. Because most people can educate their children outside the public school system. They are truly not in touch with it. Learned senior advocate, if you did not become a pro-chancellor, you will not be able to inspect your university. I can tell you a joke of a story doing so. When I went to the Faculty of Law at the University of Ife, they could not open it. The library was shut. They said there is no law library. That is the education that we are waiting to receive products from as employers of labor. So, thank you very much for your contribution. Again, I would like to thank everybody, especially the men of the Fourth Estate, who need to broadcast as widely as they can what the proceedings have produced. I think Nigeria needs to be very sad and very serious about tackling the problem of education. Otherwise, there will be more schooling without learning. Thank you all very much.
In advance.